Chapter 43-25. Di Baichen had become the center of everyone's attention. Most importantly, even the gate master and the others could not figure out what was going on with Di Baichen. Wu Wenfeng also could not figure out what was going on, so he could only conclude based on what the gate master said. Although Di Baichen's awakened talent was the dark attribute, and it was very difficult for this attribute to develop in the upper realm, the fact that he had reached the maximum level was enough to prove that Di Baichen was not simple. Maybe he would develop well in the future. Thinking of this, Wu Wenfeng remembered Di Baichen's name. After Di Baichen walked down the high platform, he returned to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. "Baichen, how are you?" Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Baichen with concern. Just from the reaction of the crowd just now, it was clear that the dark attribute was still discriminated against. Hearing this, Di Baichen smiled faintly and shook his head. "I'm fine. What can happen to me?" "Don't worry." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "Although this attribute is not liked by everyone, your maximum level has shocked everyone. Not to mention the other cultivators. Even she could not help but be surprised when she found out about this. She did not expect Di Baichen's talent in the dark attribute to be so strong. In fact, after knowing this, she was not very worried. Other dark attribute cultivators could not develop well because they did not have the inheritance of the dark energy and did not know how to cultivate in the future. However, Di Baichen was different. Long ago, Di Baichen had already obtained the inheritance of the dark attribute. With this inheritance, coupled with Di Baichen's cultivation talent, his future achievements were imaginable. "Bailey Hongzhuang." Steward Wu's voice rang out once again, pulling everyone back from their shock. "Wife, you can go up first." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, then walked up the high platform under everyone's gaze. At this moment, everyone's curious gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Previously, Di Baichen's results had already amazed everyone, but they did not know what kind of attribute Bailey Hongzhuang would awaken as Di Baichen's wife. "Do you think Bailey Hongzhuang will awaken the dark attribute like Di Baichen? If that's the case, then it will be interesting." "It shouldn't, right?" The probability of Di Baichen awakening such an attribute is very small. Even if they are husband and wife, their attributes should not be the same. "Sigh, I didn't expect him to awaken to the dark attribute. In the future, his potential." Everyone shook their heads and sighed. They were originally envious of Bailey Hongzhuang, but now their moods had calmed down a bit. After all, in the upper realm, strength was the most important thing. Even if Di Baichen's cultivation was very high, the dark attribute had already limited his future development. Everyone was sure that it would not be long before Di Baichen was gradually overtaken by other cultivators, and he would still be at the bottom of the list. The only good thing was that he had a max-level talent, so perhaps he would not be overtaken by others too quickly. Chapter 43-26. What's your situation now? Wu Wenfeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him and asked in a low voice. Looking at the faint dissatisfaction between Wu Wenfeng's eyebrows, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but smile and said, "Steward Wu, I was afraid that it would be troublesome, so I disguised myself. Now that Di Baichen is here, I naturally don't need to continue the disguise. I didn't do it on purpose before. I hope you don't blame me." Originally, Wu Wenfeng was a little dissatisfied with the fact that he had been concealed from him, but after listening to the explanation and looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful face, his heart suddenly understood a little. With Bailey Hongzhuang's demonic appearance, she would indeed attract a lot of trouble. Even with Di Baichen by her side now, there were still many practitioners who had designs on her. If it was in the past, it would be even more so. Seeing that you have a reason, I'll let this matter go. Wu Wenfeng sighed. "Thank you, Steward Wu." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled playfully. "I know that Steward Wu is the most magnanimous person. Let's test it first." Wu Wenfeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang helplessly. If it was on a normal day, he would definitely be very dissatisfied with practitioners causing trouble time and time again. The strange thing was that when these things happened to Bailey Hongzhuang, he did not have such a feeling. On the contrary, he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was very lively and cute, so he was more tolerant of her. Yes, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and immediately placed both hands on the crystal ball. As the elemental energy in her body gradually surged, Bailey Hongzhuang's mind was also filled with hope that she could awaken the dark attribute. Everyone despised the dark attribute, but she did not care at all. On the contrary, because Di Beichun had the dark attribute, she was very fond of it. After Bailey Hongzhuang's talent was awakened, the practitioners present could not help but exclaim in surprise. Bailey Hongzhuang opened her eyes and saw a dazzling light filling the entire crystal ball. This ray of light was incomparably sacred, pure, and bright. The originally transparent crystal ball suddenly became incomparably resplendent, illuminating everything around it. The cultivators who were closer to the light felt a wave of comfort wash over them. It was as if they had returned to their mother's embrace. It was safe and warm, and all their pores seemed to relax. Light attribute. Bailey Hongzhuang awakened the light attribute. What a rich power of light. It's so dazzling. This is the first time I've seen something like this. Bailey Hongzhuang, who was wearing a white gauze dress, looked like a goddess of light under the light. Her entire body exuded a soft luster, which made her delicate and perfect face look even more beautiful. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, everyone couldn't help but feel a sense of worship. It was as if she was born to be sacred, honorable, and inviolable. Wu Wenfeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. Then his eyes shone brightly. Bailey Hongzhuang had really given him a huge surprise. Originally, after knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang was an inscription master, he felt very helpless about her insistence on becoming a practitioner. He only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was not smart enough and did not know how to best develop herself. Chapter 43:27. The sect master, who had originally been very calm, could not help but stand up when he saw the light energy in the crystal ball. He walked slowly to the crystal ball and felt the extremely rich light energy. The light energy was equivalent to a gift from God in everyone's eyes. As long as one got close to it, they would feel as if their entire body and mind had received the essence. That kind of comfortable and peaceful energy was something that nothing else could give them. Even the sect master, who was very powerful, could not help but smile when he got close to this energy. The sect master's eyes flickered with excitement. When he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes were also dazzling. Is she the inscription master that you recruited? The sect master could not help but look at Wu Wenfeng and ask. Wu Wenfeng smiled and nodded. That's right, sect master. She is Bailey Hongzhuang. You've made a great contribution this time. The sect master patted Wu Wenfeng's shoulder happily. You'll be rewarded. Thank you, sect master. Wu Wenfeng was delighted. He knew all too well how important a light attribute cultivator was to his sect. Previously, the Fiery Flame sect only had one light attribute cultivator. This cultivator's status in the sect was no less than their steward's. Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to be even more talented in the light attribute. One could imagine her future status in the Fiery Flame sect. At that thought, Wu Wenfeng could not help but rejoice. He was glad that he had chosen to support Bailey Hongzhuang. If he had known that Bailey Hongzhuang had awakened a light attribute, he would not have hesitated to reject anyone who came looking for trouble, let alone the Di family. When Di Beichun noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang had awakened a light attribute, a trace of astonishment flashed across his handsome eyes. Then, a joyful smile appeared on his face. His wife was supposed to be a proud daughter of heaven. As he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was illuminated by the light energy, he felt that it was simply too suitable. Previously, he had not been able to figure out which attribute suited Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that the light energy had appeared, he felt that there was no energy more suitable for her than the light attribute. This is too shocking. Miss Bailey actually awakened the light attribute. Yi Haomiao looked at Wang Yanhan in shock. Although he had previously joked that he hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang would be able to awaken the light attribute, he didn't expect that his blind guess would actually come true. Little junior sister's talent is amazing. Not only did Wang Yanhan notice that Bailey Hongzhuang had awakened the light attribute, he also discovered that the level of this light attribute was extremely terrifying. Do you remember when Xiao Rojin awakened the light attribute? At that time, the sect master said that Xiao Rojin's attribute talent level was extremely high. She was already a rare light attribute cultivator. Look at the crystal ball in front of little junior sister. The light is even brighter than Xiao Rojin's back then. Hearing this, Yi Hao Miao couldn't help but take a closer look and said, "Before you mentioned it, I didn't think much of it, but now that you mention it, I realize that it really is. Could it be that Miss Bailey's attribute level was even higher than Xiao Rojin's? That would be amazing." "I think so." Wang Yanhan nodded. "Look, the sect master's attitude has also changed. I think he will announce it later." Just as everyone was discussing, a similar white figure slowly appeared in everyone's line of sight. Chapter 43:28. Look, Xiao Rojin is here too. Could it be that she knew that Bailey Hongzhuang would awaken the light attribute? So she came here to take a look? This Xiao Rojin's status in the Blazing Flame School is also extraordinary. It's fine that she came late today, but she actually came in such a high-profile manner. I really don't know what to say. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang has also awakened the light attribute, she won't be the only light attribute cultivator in the Blazing Flame School in the future. I wonder if she can still be like this. Xiao Rojin just happened to be interested, so she wanted to come to the awakening ceremony to take a look. However, she didn't expect to notice the shining light attribute on the high platform as soon as she arrived. Her expression immediately changed. Such a dense light was even more powerful than what she had been before, causing her expression to stiffen. Light attribute cultivators were rare in the upper realm. She didn't expect the Blazing Flame School to recruit another one so quickly. It was really surprising. Bailey Hongzhuang also didn't expect her awakened attribute to be light. She couldn't help but be shocked. She inexplicably remembered the two words that the Master of the Ruins said to her back in the ruins. Ill-fated relationship. Ill-fated relationship. All this time, the chains of this chain had been circling in her mind. She couldn't understand why the Master of the Ruins would say such a thing. She and Di Beichun had always been developing smoothly without any obstacles. How could it be related to ill-fated relationship? However, when she awakened the light attribute, she felt that the ill-fated relationship might have something to do with their different attributes. Light and darkness were two completely different attributes. Although it was a little strange for it to appear in a couple, it shouldn't have too much of an impact. She had never heard of cultivators of different attributes not being able to be together. Even if they were of completely opposite attributes, there shouldn't be any relationship between them. "Master, what's Bailey Hongzhuang's talent level?" Wu Wenfeng looked at the dense light in front of him. After thinking for a while, he decided to ask the master. In fact, he felt that such a dense light was very similar to the situation that appeared with Di Beichun previously, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. After all, it was impossible to reach the max level on a normal day. It was already inconceivable that a single max-level player had appeared today. If there were two max-level players, and both of them were a married couple, it was simply too unbelievable. However, the sect leader still said those two words. Max level. Bailey Hongzhuang, light attribute, max level. At this moment, without waiting for Wu Wenfeng to announce it, the sect leader had already announced it himself. Even with the sect master's temperament, he couldn't help but feel a surge of emotions. What did it mean to have a max-level light attribute cultivator? If he could not spread this news, he did not know how many forces would envy him. He didn't expect his luck to be so good. Wu Wenfeng actually recruited such a talented cultivator for him. It was simply an incomparable surprise. Following the sect leader's words, all the cultivators present were dumbfounded. For a moment, everyone couldn't help but imagine what it meant to have a full-level light attribute cultivator. It meant that Bailey Hongzhuang's future was limitless, and it meant that she would have a high status. Chapter 43:29. After Xiao Rojin heard the sect master's announcement, she could not help but tremble, and her expression became extremely ugly. Back then, When she was assessed as an 8th level light attribute cultivator, it had already shocked everyone. However, now there was actually a max level light attribute cultivator. This was simply too unbelievable. This kind of talent was simply a legendary existence. However, the next scene made Xiao Rojin's eyes light up. This was because after the crystal ball released the extreme light attribute light, a faint black light suddenly appeared in it. After noticing this black light, everyone's expression became strange again. How strange! Previously, a white light appeared in Di Beichen's darkness attribute, and a black light appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's light attribute. Could it be that because the two of them are husband and wife, their attributes are somewhat mixed? That's impossible, right? I've never heard of such a situation. Wu Wenfeng could not help but look at the sect master again. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang had the same situation, and after connecting the two, it became very strange. Sect master, what's going on? The sect master frowned and shook his head. A max-level cultivator has only been recorded in books before and has never been seen in real life. Therefore, I can't judge the real situation. The only thing I can be sure of is that their attribute talents are all at the max level. As for the rest, I'll do some research. At this moment, even the sect master could not easily make a judgment. Hearing the sect master's words, Wu Wenfeng also nodded. This kind of situation could only be confirmed after consulting the books. After all, this kind of situation was simply too rare. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at the darkness attribute energy in front of her, and she felt that all of this was not a coincidence. Di Beichen's situation just now must have some kind of connection with her situation. Furthermore, this trace of black energy was not an impurity at all, but darkness energy. Previously, when she had not awakened, she could not judge, but now that her attribute talent had awakened, she could already judge that this was definitely darkness energy. As Bailey Hongzhuang walked down the stage, everyone's eyes never left her, especially when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen standing together. Their expressions became extremely strange. Today, everyone's limelight had been overshadowed by Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Luo, unless another max-level cultivator appeared. However, everyone knew that this was impossible. Beichen, as Bailey Hongzhuang walked to Di Beichen's side, the two looked at each other and immediately understood everything. Wife, is the power you've awakened darkness? Di Beichen asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. That's right. Your darkness attribute is mixed with the light attribute, right? Yes. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang both fell into deep thought. This situation was indeed a little strange. Why is this happening? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. This situation was completely out of their expectations. Could it be that a person can actually awaken more than one type of power? Chapter 43:30. After what happened to Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, the following awakening ceremony seemed dull. Everyone was immersed in Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's results. Such results were too shocking. Coupled with the recent deeds of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen in the Blazing Flames sect, they were now known by everyone. After the awakening ceremony ended, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen slowly walked back to their residence. However, at this moment, both of them were thinking about why such a situation occurred. Little junior sister, congratulations! Wang Yanhan walked up to Bailey Hongzhuang with a congratulatory smile on his face. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Thank you, senior brother. Your results today really shocked everyone. In the history of the Blazing Flame sect, oh no, in the history of the entire Rong city, I'm afraid such a situation has never happened before. Yi Hao Miao's eyes flashed with excitement. You've even stumped the sect leader. How rare is that? As he spoke, Yi Hao Miao put a hand on Di Beichen's shoulder and said, Beichen, you don't have to worry too much. Although the darkness attribute isn't very popular, you have the max-level darkness attribute. This way, the situation will be different. I believe that you'll be very strong in the future. Di Beichen knew that Yi Hao Miao was taking his emotions into consideration, so he smiled. Yes, no matter what kind of power it is, there will always be a way out. Speaking of which, something else has appeared in both of your powers. Do you know what it is? Wang Yanhan couldn't help but ask. We don't know. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. We only learned about the awakening of attributes recently. As for the possible situation, we only heard about it from you, senior brother. Senior martial brother, do you know why this happened? I don't know either. Wang Yanhan looked helpless. I've never heard of it before. Senior brother Wang Yan, we would like to inquire about the situation in this area from books. May I know where we can find related books? There should be some in the library. Now that you're disciples of the Raging Flame School, you can go take a look. However, I think that the sect master will also look for relevant information. If he finds it, he should tell you. Hearing this, Di Beichun cupped his hands and said, Thank you. After separating from Wang Yanhan, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichun and said, Beichun, have you decided to go to the library to check it out? Di Beichun nodded slightly. If the relevant information is recorded in the books, we'd better check it out ourselves. Okay, Bailey Hongzhuang replied. The sect master would indeed check it out, but they couldn't guarantee what he would tell them. In comparison, it was safer for them to find out the situation themselves. Whether it was Di Beichun or Bailey Hongzhuang, they both like to control everything in their own hands, not others. In the library, with Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun's current level, they could only stay on the first floor of the library. Although they couldn't find more books, they didn't mind. Even if they could find some clues, it would be good. Chapter 43:31. Time gradually passed. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun sat quietly in the library, but the number of books they read increased. The four beasties did not stay idle in such a situation, and they all helped to search. Therefore, their reading speed was extremely fast. However, after flipping through almost all the books on the first floor of the library, they still did not find anything. Beichun, these books have no record of the relevant situation. Bailey Hongzhuang closed the book in her hand and looked at Di Beichun, who was still searching seriously. Di Beichun looked up slightly and nodded. There are no descriptions in these anecdotes either. The situation we encountered today should be very rare. Actually, we could tell from the temple master and Steward Wu's expressions at that time. There might be some records in the books on the upper floors, Bailey Hongzhuang said after some thought. Max-level cultivators are already very rare, and the situation after that is probably even more unheard of. It's normal that we can't find any records in such a short period of time. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Why don't we ask Steward Wu? With my identity as an inscription master and our performance today, perhaps I'll have some special privileges? Moreover, we're not looking for cultivation methods or martial techniques. We just want to find some anecdotes. It should be possible. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's suggestion, a thoughtful light flashed across Di Beichun's eyes. We can try. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun went to ask Steward Wu for permission to enter the upper floors of the library, the Blazing Flames Sex Master, Yin Qingyu, was also looking through the relevant information. Wu Wenfeng was right beside him. The situation we saw today is really too rare. Even when we flipped through the ancient books, there was no record of the relevant content. Yin Qingyu frowned. He had to admit that the appearance of two cultivators with max-level innate talents today was a huge surprise to him. The only thing he could not understand now was why such a situation had happened later. He had never heard of any substance other than this attribute appearing during the awakening of an innate talent. As for the impurities that he had mentioned, he wasn't very sure himself. Sect Master, didn't you say those things were impurities? Wu Wenfeng couldn't help but ask. Although that's what I said, when I think about it carefully, I feel that there might be some problems. Yin Qingyu pondered. If there are impurities, then their talent level shouldn't have reached the maximum level. Max level means that their talent in this attribute has reached perfection. Since it's perfect, why would there be impurities? As Yin Qingyu's voice fell, Wu Wenfeng also nodded. Sect Master, you're right. In that case, the situation is indeed a little strange. I actually have a rather unbelievable guess. What guess? Yin Qingyu glanced at Wu Wenfeng's hesitant expression and said, We're both thinking about this right now. Just say whatever comes to mind. There's no need to be reserved. Seeing this, Wu Wenfeng finally relaxed a little. Sect Master, could the other substance that appeared be of another attribute? Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun have the light and dark attributes respectively. They're also husband and wife. Since they spend every night together, perhaps there's an effect on each other. Chapter 43-32. Now, other than these two possibilities, I really can't think of any other. Wu Wenfeng's expression was somewhat helpless. Originally, he had recruited 2 cultivators who were at the maximum level. This was something that made him extremely happy. However, he didn't expect to give them such a big problem at the same time. If you really don't have any ideas, why don't you invite Xiao Rojin over and ask her? Yun Qingyu said slowly. Her main family has a holy maiden of light. I'm sure we'll know something after asking her. Yes. Ever since Xiao Rojin found out that Bailey Hongzhuang was a cultivator with the highest level of the light attribute, her feelings were very complicated. She originally thought that if she didn't stay in the main city and came to Rome and city, she would be able to become the rarest light attribute cultivator here. She didn't expect that there would be a cultivator with the highest level of the light attribute in Rome and city now. Her previous balance was immediately broken. This was not a situation she wanted to see. Cultivators with the light attribute are extremely rare. It's already extremely difficult to find someone with average aptitude. How could there be a cultivator with the highest level of aptitude? Xiao Rojin frowned. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes today, she wouldn't have believed this news at all. Just as she was thinking, she suddenly heard the news from the sect master. Her heart couldn't help but thump. She felt a wave of apprehension, but she didn't dare to delay at all. Greetings, sect master. Xiao Rojin bowed to Yun Qingyu. Her delicate and fair face was rippling with a gentle smile. Coupled with her delicate temperament, her entire person seemed to be made of water. Her pair of watery eyes made people feel relaxed and happy at a glance. Seeing Xiao Rojin, Yun Qingyu's face also bloomed with a smile. You're here. Congratulations, sect master, for recruiting 2 cultivators with the highest level of talent. One of them is even a cultivator with the highest level of the light attribute. Congratulations. Xiao Rojin congratulated, her beautiful little face blooming like a flower. Ha! Yun Qingyu chuckled. This is indeed a joyous occasion. It's beyond all of our expectations. I heard that these 2 took the initiative to join the Blazing Flames sect. I think it must be because of the sect master's reputation that they came because of it. With just a few simple words, Xiao Rojin made Yun Qingyu extremely happy. Xiao Rojin, I called you over this time because I have something to ask you, Yun Qingyu said slowly, and there was a hint of seriousness in his smile. Hearing this, Xiao Rojin's expression also became more serious. Sect master, please ask. Rojin will definitely tell you everything she knows. Do you know what happened to Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun today? Yun Qingyu's dark eyes were serious. You're a level 8 light attribute cultivator yourself, so you should have some understanding of this. Do you think it could be another attribute? Xiao Rojin didn't answer immediately. Instead, she thought seriously for a moment before saying, Sect master, to be honest, I've heard of cultivators who can awaken 2 attributes at the same time. However, I've only heard of it in stories before. However, those are attributes that don't conflict with each other. For example, darkness and light are 2 completely opposite attributes. My family has said that it's impossible for them to exist at the same time, because this possibility itself already defies common sense. Chapter 43-33. According to this, it seems that there is only one explanation for the existence of impurities in the attribute. Yun Qingyu frowned slightly. The deep and bright name was blooming with a complicated light. He always felt that this explanation was a bit far-fetched. Xiao Rojin also said uncertainly, I think so. Other than this, I really can't think of any other possibilities. Sect master, even if there are impurities, is not a big deal. Their attribute talents have already reached the maximum level. Although they are not as powerful as the Holy Maiden of Light of our main house, their talents have definitely surpassed the vast majority of cultivators. Hearing this, Yun Qingyu nodded, and his expression relaxed a little. You're right. Whether it's impurities or not, to be able to reach this level is already very outstanding. Rojin, if you have the chance, can you help me ask? Don't worry, Secmaster. If I have the chance, I will definitely ask. If I have any news, I will definitely report it as soon as possible. Then I'll have to trouble you. A smile appeared on Yun Qingyu's face. The Holy Maiden of Light must have a certain understanding of this. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun waited outside the door for a while before they saw Wu Wenfeng slowly walk back. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Rojin, Wu Wenfeng's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. You're here to find me? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Steward Wu, we want to go to the library to take a look, but we can only go to the first floor, so we came to find you to ask if there's a way to go to the higher floors to take a look. Hearing this, Wu Wenfeng was not surprised. You want to check if there is any information related to your situation today in the ancient books, right? Yes. Di Beichun replied frankly. With your performance today, you will definitely be groomed as key disciples of the Blazing Flames sect in the future. It's possible to upgrade your authority, but I'm afraid it will be very difficult for you to achieve your goal. Wu Wenfeng sighed, his expression filled with confusion and helplessness. Actually, after what happened today, we've already looked into it, but it's really too rare. Until now, we haven't found anything related to it that can explain it. However, since Secmaster is looking for Xiao Rojin, maybe you can get some information from her. Once I figure it out, I'll tell you. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun couldn't help but look at each other. It seemed that their guess was right. The Secmaster was also studying this point. Xiao Rojin? Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but think of the white-robed woman she had seen today. Steward Wu. Was she the only light cultivator in the Raging Flame School? That's right, it's her. Wu Wenfeng nodded. The Xiao family has a very high status in the upper realm. Light attribute cultivators often appear in their family. As soon as he said that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun immediately understood. Just based on what Wu Wenfeng had said, it was enough to prove that Xiao Rojin's background was completely incomparable to Di Wentao's. No wonder that Xiao Rojin has always been like the moon, surrounded by stars in the Raging Flame School. So she has such a background. Xiao He could not help but sigh. The scene of Xiao Rojin's appearance today was comparable to that of the Secmaster. She was just a disciple of the Raging Flame School. How could such a scene not leave a deep impression? I see. Chapter 43-34. Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised to see Wu Wenfeng give her the warrants so easily. Although she felt that she had a chance to enter the higher levels of the library, she thought that Wu Wenfeng would hesitate. She didn't expect things to go so smoothly. Both of you are cultivators with full attribute talents. It's only a matter of time before you obtain this level of authority. Why should I stop you? Wu Wenfeng explained as if he had guessed Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts. Speaking of which, I have to thank you for joining the Blazing Sect. If it weren't for you, the Secmaster probably wouldn't have treated me differently. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun smiled when they heard that. Thank you, Steward Wu. Go on. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun returned to the library after receiving the warrant. Even though Steward Wu said that there was no relevant information in the library, they still decided to take a look. They had just arrived in the upper realm, so there were too many things they didn't know. They would be able to understand more through these books. At the very least, they wouldn't be completely clueless. For the next few days, they stayed in the library. The contents here allowed them to gain a better understanding of the upper realm. However, everything was as Manager Wood said. There was indeed no record of the situation that they had appeared in. Beichun, things that haven't appeared in the past don't mean that they can't appear now. It's just like how most cultivators can only contract one beast. However, this rule has been broken for me. There hasn't been a cultivator who has awakened the darkness and light attributes in the past, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible for the two of us. Bailey Hongzhuang's clear black and white eyes rippled with a calm and wise light. In the past few days, she had made many connections and finally came to this conclusion. If it were in the past, she wouldn't have believed it either. However, transmigration had happened to her. What else was impossible? Di Baichen nodded when he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. You're right. Perhaps what happened to us is another transformation. It's just that it happened to us, and it's our attributes. It's too much of coincidence. Maybe we're husband and wife and spend all our time together, so we've been affected by each other. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. In fact, other than this explanation, she really couldn't think of any other explanation. Suddenly, Di Baichen's eyes narrowed. Wife, take a look at what's written in this book. Bailey Hongzhuang went to Di Baichen's side. He was also holding a book's record. He was also holding a book that contained excerpts of legends. The Holy Maiden of Light and the Lord of Darkness had disappeared together for a period of time. After reading up to here, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. This news was really a bit explosive. Di Baichen nodded slightly. There are only a few sentences recorded in this book. Back then, the Holy Maiden of Light and the Lord of Darkness disappeared together. Later on, the people of the Holy Assembly of Light found the Holy Maiden of Light and had a great battle with the Lord of Darkness. Since then, the Holy Maiden of Light had stayed in the Holy Assembly of Light and never left. In just a few decades, the Holy Maiden of Light had fallen. Chapter 43-35. Bailey Hongzhuang's beautiful eyes sparkled with doubt. She propped her chin up with her hand and tapped her chin rhythmically with her index finger. There must be something fishy about this. I have the same thoughts as you. There must be something hidden behind this. It's just that it hasn't been recorded yet. Logically speaking, since she could become the Holy Maiden of Light, her cultivation must be very strong and her lifespan should be very long. How could she have died in just a few decades? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Could it be that the Lord of Darkness had captured the Holy Maiden of Light? The relationship between the two parties was so bad. It's very possible that the Lord of Darkness had done so. I don't think that's the case. Di Baichen pondered over the description in the book. Although it was only a few lines of words, after careful consideration, he could still find some clues that were revealed. If the Lord of Darkness wanted to harm the Holy Maiden of Light, since he had captured the Holy Maiden of Light, then he could have killed the Holy Maiden of Light. Why would he give the people of the Holy Assembly the chance to rescue the Holy Maiden of Light? Di Baichen's voice was low. His handsome eyes rippled with thoughts. His intuition told him that this was definitely not the case. You're right, but if that's not the case, Bailey Hongzhuang's index finger that was tapping her chin suddenly stopped. Her clear black and white eyes suddenly shone brightly. Do you think, could there be an affair between the Holy Maiden of Light and the Lord of Darkness? Di Baichen fell silent as soon as she said this. Thinking about it carefully, there is indeed such a possibility. The book says that the Holy Maiden of Light had disappeared for a long time. If there were feelings between the two parties, then everything would make sense. It can't be that explosive. Bailey Hongzhuang stood up and paced slowly. The Holy Maiden of Light had a very high status in the past. The Lord of Darkness was also someone who was abandoned by everyone. This feeling is equivalent to the Holy Maiden and the devil being together. If this news were to spread, how shocking would it be? If it's true, then this relationship can be called an unparalleled love. Nothing is impossible in this world. Di Baichen was relatively indifferent. If that's the case, the Saintess of Light might have died of depression. A relationship that everyone opposes must be very stressful for them. I suddenly sympathize with them. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh. With such a huge gap, let alone actually happening, just thinking about it was enough to understand that this was an extremely terrifying disaster. If their guesses were true, the relationship back then must have been fascinating and torturous. How deep must their feelings be for them to disregard the views of the world and be together? Unfortunately, it didn't end well. They had already expected this outcome before they got together, but they still did it. This proves that everything is worth it in their hearts. At the very least, they still spent some time together, didn't they? It's best if the relationship lasts forever, but for them, having a period of time together might be worth a lifetime of nostalgia, Di Bachan said slowly. Chapter 43:36. For people of their status, they can obtain many things that ordinary people can't. However, the things that they can't obtain are the things that ordinary people can easily obtain. Di Bachan's eyes were deep. He couldn't help but think of his master, He Shinjun. From the moment he saw his master, he felt a kind of sadness in his master's eyes. This kind of sadness went deep into the bone marrow, dissolved in the blood, and implanted in the soul. Logically speaking, with He Shinjun's strength and ability, he should be high-spirited. However, he only saw an indescribable sadness in He Shinjun's eyes. Even if he knew that the power of darkness was misunderstood by the world, he believed that this was not the only thing that made He Shinjun so sad. There must be something else. However, He Shinjun had never told him. He felt that perhaps when the time He Shinjun spoke of arrived, he would be able to find out everything. Bachan, doesn't your master have the inheritance of the power of darkness? The power of darkness has been lost for so many years. So many people in the upper realm have not been able to find the inheritance of the power of darkness. However, your master has it. Do you think that he is the Lord of Darkness? Bailey Hongzhuang's delicate and outstanding face rippled with a faint pondering expression. Her bright eyes stared at Di Bachan. She felt that her guess was not impossible. I don't know about this. Di Bachan shook his head. There were still too many things that they did not understand. Even if he vaguely had such a guess in his heart, he could not be so sure before he had concrete evidence. Let's look at the books again. Maybe there will be other clues. Okay. The two immediately looked at the books again. Unfortunately, except for a few sporadic records in that book, they could not find any other related records. Regarding this point, Bailey Hongzhuang was helpless, but they were also quite calm. They had already guessed that they could not find any related content. Now that they could see a few words, it was already a good result. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Bachan appeared in front of everyone again, everyone looked at them differently. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao rushed over almost immediately. Where have the two of you been these 2 days? We didn't see any trace of you, so we thought something had happened to you. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. What else can happen between us? Did you think that we were captured by the Di family? That's not impossible. Yi Haomiao said seriously, the Di family is obviously not a good person. They might have been taught a lesson, but they might not have stopped. If the two of you don't appear, Wang Yanhan and I will go to the Di family to look for you. Fortunately, the two of you didn't go. The Di family is sinister and ruthless. If only the two of you went, wouldn't you have died in their hands? Bailey Hongzhuang was shocked. Fortunately, these two guys didn't do anything impulsive. Speaking of which, where did the two of you go? Wang Yanhan couldn't help but ask. We stayed in the library for a few days, Di Bachan answered. So you went to the library? Wang Yanhan suddenly understood. To find out what happened to the two of you. Chapter 43:37. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands. Everything was as Wang Yanhan had told them before. It's normal that you didn't find anything. However, during the few days you were in the library, there was a rather certain piece of news. Wang Yanhan said, What news? You know Xiao Rojin, right? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I know her. She's the light attribute cultivator from before. I heard that she and the sect master had researched it. In the end, they determined that the reason why your innate talents are like this is because of impurities. There are still some impurities in your innate talents. Therefore, although it looks like you're at the peak level, there's still a gap. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Bachan looked at each other. They found it funny. Although they hadn't found any records to confirm their thoughts, the two of them were very sure that what happened to their bodies was the awakening of two innate talents. That other substance was definitely not an impurity, but a different kind of power. Because the two of them could clearly feel it. It was just that Bailey Hongzhuang's light attribute was the strongest, and her darkness attribute was the weakest. Di Bachan's situation was the complete opposite. Even so, it was still another kind of power. They even tried to control the other kind of power. The situation was just as they thought. They could indeed control it. They believed that as long as they practiced more, they would definitely be able to control both kinds of power very well in the future. As for the so-called impurities, they couldn't be bothered to care about it. What kind of person is Xiao Rojin? Why is she so sure that everyone believes her? Bailey Hongzhuang was puzzled. Speaking of Xiao Rojin, it's complicated. Actually, the reason why she was able to obtain such a position in the Raging Flame sect is not only because she's a light attribute cultivator that has reached the 8th rank, but also because of her background, the Xiao clan. The Xiao clan is a large aristocratic family in the upper realm. They're so powerful that it's beyond our understanding. Normally, we wouldn't even be able to come into contact with them. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun couldn't help but exchange a glance. It seemed like the Xiao clan was also a super clan like the Di clan. Just like how no one knew about the Di clan, when they asked about the Di clan, they didn't expect that someone from the Xiao clan actually knew about it. Since the Xiao family is so powerful, why did she come to Rowan City? With her background, she should be able to develop better if she stays in a super family like the Xiao family, right? Di Beichun furrowed his beautiful eyebrows. Just this point alone was already very unreasonable. Xiao Rojin is actually a cultivator from the Xiao family's branch family. She is not qualified to enter the real Xiao family. In fact, those super aristocratic families had existed for many years. So, there were branch families, but the main family was the direct descendant. Of course, if the branch family cultivators performed well, they would be able to enter the main family and stay in the main family. However, Xiao Rojin obviously hasn't reached that level yet, but she's not bad either. That's why she came to the Raging Flames school and obtained such a high status here. So it's like that. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly, immediately understanding. She used to be the head of the Bailey family, so she was very clear about this situation. Chapter 43:38. Let me tell you, there's a cultivator of the light attribute with full talent in the Xiao family. It's said that she's very likely to become the next Holy Maiden of Light. Ever since this news spread, the status of the Xiao family has risen. Although Xiao Rojin is only a branch disciple of the Xiao family, in our realm and city, her status is already very impressive. The next Holy Maiden of Light? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. She didn't care much about the other news, but this news was very surprising. Wang Yanhan nodded. That's right. It's very rare for the Holy Maiden of Light to appear. Only cultivators with full talent attributes can inherit it. In fact, ever since the previous Holy Maiden of Light fell, there hasn't been a new Holy Maiden of Light for a long time. We only found out about this news because Xiao Rojin joined the Blazing Flame School. By the way, I also heard another news. In fact, although the Holy Maiden of Light of the Xiao family is very strong, her talent attribute hasn't really reached the full level. It's only close to the full level. There's still a slight difference. However, because the Holy Maiden of Light hasn't appeared for too long, the people of the Holy Assembly are still very interested in making her the Holy Maiden of Light. Yi Haomiao lowered his voice and told them the news he had received. How did you know about such secretive information? Wang Yanhan looked at Yi Haomiao in surprise. Even he had never heard of this kind of news. I heard from the people around Xiao Rojin that as long as you find a way to get this kind of news, you can always get it. You're not as flexible as me. Women, you could get a lot of information from them by coaxing them. Yi Haomiao chuckled. Actually, I'm also concerned about your situation, Hongzhuang. That's why I went to get information. Don't look at me with such strange eyes. All right, seeing that you have good intentions, I won't despise you. Wang Yanhan shrugged and said, Hongzhuang, speaking of which, your light attribute talent is so powerful. If you go to the Holy Assembly, you should be treated very well. If there are no impurities when your talent awakens, you might directly replace the Holy Maiden of Light of the Xiao family and become the real Holy Maiden of Light. Once you succeed, it will be amazing. A hint of excitement appeared on Yi Haomiao's face. Just thinking about this possibility made him extremely excited. Forget it, The Shao clan has already produced a successor to the Holy Maiden of Light. Why should I join the fun? Fortunately, some impurities appeared when my innate talent was awakened. Otherwise, I might have lost my life. Bailey Hongzhuang wrinkled her nose. She understood this situation very well. The Shao family had such a strong background. They would definitely be overjoyed to have an inheritor of the Holy Maiden of Light. If he ruined their plan, they might send someone to deal with him soon. Moreover, ever since she had guessed some secrets about the Saintess of the Light in the library, she felt that there was nothing good about being the Saintess of the Light. Coincidentally, Beichun was also a practitioner of the dark attribute. If she had to separate from Di Beichun because of this, she would not be able to accept it. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Wan Yanhan nodded. Junior sister, you're right. We shouldn't get involved in this matter. Chapter 43-39. After reaching a consensus, Wan Yanhan and the rest did not continue to harp on this point. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were already very impressive to be able to achieve such results. In the future, they would definitely have a good future in the Blazing Flames sect. As for those things that were out of their reach, it was better for them to just ignore it. After returning to the house, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun had a good discussion again. Wife, since everyone is now certain that this situation is due to the appearance of the impurities, we might as well not explain it. I will pass on the dark attribute inheritance to you. As long as you cultivate it well, it can be used as a trump card in the future. It can achieve unexpected results. As cultivators, they were very clear about the use of trump cards. If all of their trump cards were known by their opponents, they would be in real danger. The more trump cards they had, the safer they would be. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Okay, the bird that pokes its head out will be shot. She was very clear about this. Their previous performance was already sufficiently high profile. Now that the major forces had not noticed them, it was extremely good for them to keep a low profile. Master, something seems to be wrong with Shao Bai's situation. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were discussing the upcoming situation, Xiao Hei's anxious voice was suddenly heard. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun's expressions changed. They hurriedly asked, what happened? Actually, ever since Master's innate talent was awakened, Xiao Bai has been a little strange. It has always felt very uncomfortable, but it felt that there was nothing wrong with it. It also didn't want Master to worry, so it has been enduring it. Now, it's becoming more and more strange. Master, quickly take a look at it. Xiao Hei's face was filled with anxiety. It had been with Xiao Bai for so many years, but had never seen Xiao Bai in such a situation. How could this be? Bailey Hongzhuang was also very anxious. She immediately began to check on Xiao Bai's situation. You should have told me immediately. We also don't know why its situation is getting worse. At first, we thought it was just a little uncomfortable and would be over after a while. We didn't expect it to get worse. Bailey Hongzhuang took Xiao Bai's pulse and realized that Xiao Bai's situation was indeed very strange. Wife, how's Xiao Bai's situation? Asked Di Beichun. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Its situation is very strange. It's a bit like an attribute awakening. The power in its body is rampaging, so it fell into this situation. Be able to control? I've never encountered such a situation before, but I'll think of a way to try. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking of a way to control Xiao Bai's situation, Xiao Bai suddenly charged toward Di Beichun as if it had gone mad. It bit Di Beichun's shoulder. Seeing this, everyone could not help but be stunned. Xiao Bai. Everyone called out. They could not understand why Xiao Bai had suddenly become like this. It was really too strange. Just as everyone was wondering why Xiao Bai had suddenly gone mad, they realized that after Di Beichun's blood stained Xiao Bai's fur, Xiao Bai's situation suddenly calmed down. Then, there was a flash of light, and Xiao Bai fell into a deep sleep. Master, what's going on? Chapter 43-40. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not answer Xiao Hei's question immediately. Instead, she exchanged glances with Di Beichun. If they had not seen wrongly, Did Xiao Bai complete a contract with Di Beichen? Bailey Hongzhuang immediately checked the contract totem between her and Xiao Bai. She realized that the original totem had disappeared. At the same time, Di Beichen realized that he had a new totem. There was a new connection between him and Xiao Bai. What's going on? Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen stared at each other. This situation was too strange. Since ancient times, they had never heard of a contract beast being able to change owners. Moreover, this had happened so suddenly. How did Xiao Bai suddenly become Di Beichen's contract beast? I don't know. Di Beichen shook his head. This had happened so suddenly that he did not expect this at all. Xiao Bai had already fainted. Bailey Hongzhuang heaved a sigh of relief after checking on Xiao Bai's condition. Although I don't know what happened, Xiao Bai's condition has stabilized. There shouldn't be any more problems. Di Beichen, Xiao He, and Bai Shi heaved a sigh of relief after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words. They had been very worried when Xiao Bai suddenly became like that. After letting Xiao Bai rest, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen began to recall the details from before. Xiao Bai was originally fine. Did this happen all of a sudden because you were going to be its owner? Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. This situation had happened too suddenly. Moreover, she had never heard of similar situation. Come to think of it, Xiao Bai's situation seems to coincide with the awakening of our talents. Previously, the energy in Xiao Bai's body kept clashing. Could it be that your darkness attribute is suitable for it? I just checked and found that Xiao Hei's awakened elemental power is also of the dark attribute. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen was surprised. Xiao Bai has the dark attribute? That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I've checked it myself. It's the darkness attribute. Then take a look at Xiao Hei's attributes. Without waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to check, Xiao He had already taken the initiative to explain, Master, I'm of the light attribute like you. That's interesting. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. After connecting all the dots, everything became very interesting. Indeed, this seems to be too much of a coincidence. Di Beichen's deep eyes flashed with a complicated light. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's attributes are just like the color of their fur. Could it be that this was destined from the beginning? The two of us have such a difference in attributes. It's the same for Xiao He and Xiao Bai. Now, Xiao Bai has even become your contracted beast. All of this is very strange. Moreover, after connecting all the dots, it seems like it was destined. If it was only one thing, it might be a coincidence. However, when all of these things were connected together, it was no longer a coincidence. Bailey Hongzhuang never believed that so many coincidences could happen in such a short period of time. Everything seemed to have been premeditated. It's very strange indeed. Di Beichen agreed with Bailey Hongzhuang's opinion. There should be some connection between all these things. However, we need to think carefully about what exactly it is. Chapter 43-41. When Xiao Bai slowly woke up, it opened its eyes to find Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, Xiao He, and Bai Shi staring at it. It could not help but be stunned. Master, why are you looking at me like that? Bailey Hongzhuang saw Xiao Bai calling her master and could not help but say helplessly, Xiao Bai, your current master is Di Beichen. As Bailey Hongzhuang finished speaking, Xiao Bai was stunned. It looked at her in confusion. Its eyes filled with confusion. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. It seemed that Xiao Bai did not know what had happened either. In that case, the situation was really a mystery. Xiao He moved in front of Xiao Bai and said, Xiao Bai, you suddenly went crazy and changed the contract. Now, you're Di Beichen's contracted beast. Xiao He, what nonsense are you talking about? Xiao Bai frowned, vaguely showing some anger. Bailey Hongzhuang had always been its closest master. Now that Xiao He had suddenly said such things to it, it was very unhappy. However, when it felt carefully, it found that it didn't know when, but the person who was connected to it had become Di Beichen. For a moment, Xiao Bai felt as if it had been struck by lightning. It stared blankly at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others in front of it, its mind blank. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to tell Xiao Bai what had happened, Xiao Bai suddenly burst into tears. Master, don't you want Xiao Bai anymore? What did Xiao Bai do wrong? Why did you abandon me for no reason? Wah! Xiao Bai sat on the bed with a thud. Its chubby little hands covered its eyes as it cried. Its pitiful little appearance was completely like an abandoned little beast. It could not take such a blow and was heartbroken. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips twitched. Speaking of which, she should be the one who was abandoned now, right? Xiao Bai suddenly abandoned her and chose another master. Now it was actually complaining about her. She was the one who was suffering but could not speak of it. However, seeing Xiao Bai's heartbroken expression, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart ached. This little fellow had always been by her side and was very loyal. Thinking about it, it seemed that Xiao Bai did not know what had happened. Otherwise, it would not be so sad. It would not be so sad now. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang pulled Xiao Bai into her arms. She stroked its furry little head and comforted it. Xiao Bai, don't be sad. I didn't abandon you. Hearing this, Xiao Bai raised its head and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with its big, red, swollen eyes. Then why was the contract between us suddenly canceled? Why, you must be lying to me. As soon as he said that, Little White cried even harder. Little White, we don't know what's going on either. You suddenly bit Beichen. After his blood dripped on you, the master-servant contract between us automatically canceled. On the other hand, the contract between you and Beichen was completed. Speaking of which, I was the one who was abandoned by you. Xiao Bai was slightly stunned. It looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in confusion and could not react for a moment. This was done by me? Chapter 43-42. At this moment, Xiao He also nodded. Xiao Bai, what master said is true. I don't know what happened to you just now, but you suddenly seemed to be possessed and mysteriously became like this. Xiao Bai, who was originally heartbroken, gradually calmed down after hearing everyone tell it the truth. Its red and swollen eyes looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen in front of it. It was obvious that it still could not believe this fact. After a long while, Xiao Bai finally calmed down. However, its eyes were still full of reluctance when it looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and patted Xiao Bai's head. Don't be sad. It's good that you're with Beichen. Besides, I've always been with Beichen. Although the owner of the contract has changed, it's still the same when you think about it. Don't worry, I'll take good care of you too. Di Beichen also smiled faintly. Hearing this, Xiao Bai nodded. In fact, thinking about it carefully, its master and Di Beichen's relationship was so good, but in fact, it had not changed much. I'm just not used to it yet. It's okay. You'll get used to it slowly. Bailey Hongzhuang's delicate and perfect face had a gentle smile. Her voice was as warm as the spring breeze. If this happened to someone else, she would definitely not be able to accept it. However, it happened to Di Beichen. This was already the most fortunate thing for her. At least, Xiao Bai was still with them every day. Master, do you know why this is happening? Little White had a puzzled look on his face. Even though he had already believed this fact, it was still too inconceivable. It had lived for so many years, but it had never heard of such a thing. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. Right now, I don't know what happened either. However, the only thing I can think of is that it has something to do with the darkness attribute that you've awakened. Do you know that you've already awakened the darkness attribute? Xiao Bai shook her head. I don't know. Previously, I just felt very uncomfortable inside my body, as if my entire body was being burned. As for other problems, I don't know. I've just discovered this as well. You and Xiao He have awakened two completely different attributes. I think it's because you've awakened the darkness attribute, which doesn't match my attribute. That's why you completed the contract with Beichen. However, I've never heard that a cultivator and a contracted beast must have the same attributes, so I can't think of a real explanation for now. Bailey Hongzhuang spread her hands. Originally, they came to the upper realm to help Di Beichen find his biological parents and solve their doubts. Unexpectedly, they encountered even more puzzling things now. Bachin is definitely not the only dark attribute cultivator in the upper realm. Why did Xiao Bai complete the contract with Bachin? Bai Shi, who had been silent all this while, could not help but voice the doubts in his heart. He really could not understand this. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. I don't know either. Perhaps it's because Beichun is closer to her. No. Deep Beichun shook his head. His deep, dark eyes flickered with a complicated light. There must be another reason behind this. It's definitely not that simple. Chapter 43-43. Di Yujue and Lin Yunqing searched for Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang along the way. Apart from finding some traces of Di Beichen, there was no news of him at all. Yujue, we've been searching for a few days now. Why haven't we heard from Beichen yet? Lin Yunqing's hands were tightly clasped together. Her beautiful face was filled with worry. Do you think something has happened to Beichen? Di Yujue also frowned. There's something wrong with this matter. I've already sent people to investigate. However, don't worry. Beichun is blessed by the heavens. He'll definitely be fine. Something wrong? Lin Yunqing's eyes suddenly widened. She looked at Di Yujue with burning eyes. What's wrong? Di Yujue looked at the anxious Lin Yunqing. For a moment, he was hesitant about whether he should tell her. Don't hide it from me. I'm Beichun's mother. I want to know everything about him. Lin Yunqing grabbed Di Yujue's hand. Her expression was sincere and nervous. She had waited for so many years and finally found out about her son's whereabouts. He had already come to the upper realm, but they had searched for so long without finding any trace of him. She knew that something must have gone wrong. Then promise me that you won't think too much and that you won't be impulsive. Lin Yunqing nodded repeatedly. All right, I promise you. There are two strange things. The first is that Beichen should have come with Hongzhuang. However, according to the information we've received, everyone has only seen Beichen's figure. They've never seen Hongzhuang's figure. According to what I know, the relationship between husband and wife is very good. They shouldn't have separated. Could they have gotten lost? Lin Yunqing guessed. That's indeed a possibility. Di Yujue nodded. Originally, we had already found the city where Beichun had appeared, but he didn't stay for long. Instead, he left in a hurry. Based on this point, I think he must have gone to find Hongzhuang. Otherwise, he would not have gone to other places with a purpose. What's the second point? Lin Yunqing continued to ask. Secondly, with the Di family's strength, it should be very easy for us to find Beichen. At first, we found Beichen's traces very quickly, but then the situation became very strange. It seems that someone got ahead of us and erased all traces of Beichen. After that, a bunch of messy news suddenly appeared, completely confusing our line of sight. Until now, we have lost all clues. Di Yujue's handsome face suddenly showed a trace of hostility. For such a situation to occur, it was obvious that someone was behind it. He had spent so many years to find his precious son. He would never allow anyone to lay a hand on his son again. If he knew who the culprit was, he would make sure that the culprit died without a burial place. Lin Yunqing was not a stupid person. After hearing this point, she immediately understood. You mean there's a traitor in the family? Di Yujue nodded slightly and lowered his voice. Not many people know about Beichen's whereabouts. However, the traitor was able to find out about it. It seems that the traitor has hidden himself very well in the Di family and has a very high status. Chapter 43-44. How could this be? Lin Yunqing only felt that her view of the family had suddenly changed. She had thought that the family was peaceful, but she realized that there were hidden waves surging. The other party may have been hiding in the family for many years. If we hadn't been looking for Beichen this time, we might not have been able to find out. You mustn't tell anyone about this. Do you understand? Di Yujue stared at Lin Yunqing with a sense of worry in the depths of his deep eyes. The other party had planted a mole deep within their family, so it was clear that the other party's background was not small. Although they had a large family business and a stable foundation, they had many opponents. Once the other party carried out any plans, they would have to deal with it carefully. Before he could confirm the identity of the mole, He must not let this information leak out because he was worried that Lin Yinqing would be in danger. Understand. Lin Yinqing nodded, but her heart grew even more worried. The other party is doing everything possible to prevent us from finding Beichen. Could it be that they want to harm Beichen? In that case, they will definitely find Beichen before we do. If they were to attack Beichen, Beichen would definitely not be a match for them. Lin Yunqing's eyes immediately turned red. She could not accept that something had happened to Beichen. In the past, she had always felt that something had happened to Beichen. Ever since she found out that Beichen was still alive and had grown up well, she felt as if she had ascended to heaven and was incomparably happy. If something were to happen to Beichen at this time, she would fall into hell once again. This was something that she absolutely could not bear. No. Lin Yinqing hurriedly rose to her feet. We must find Beichen as soon as possible. Yinqing, calm down first. Du Jue held Lin Yunqing's hand. I've already sped up the investigation. I've also sent a message back to the family. Believe me, I will definitely find Beichen safely, but now the situation has become a lot more complicated. The other party is in the dark, and we are in the light, so we must be more careful. Lin Yunqing's eyes reddened as tears rolled down her cheeks. I really don't understand why they want to stop me from reuniting with Beichen. I just want to see my son. What's the problem? Looking at Lin Yunqing's fragile appearance, Du Jue hurriedly pulled Lin Yunqing into his arms and said with heartache, Yunqing, I'm sorry for making you suffer so much pain. I made a mistake in the past and caused you to lose contact with your beloved son. But this time, believe me, I won't let them succeed, okay? Lin Yunqing bit her lip and nodded. I believe you. All right. In the secret chamber, a middle-aged man was sitting in the room. The dim light shone on his body, making his face look sinister and cold. How is it? Did you manage to stop them? I've already sent people to spread the news to confuse them. Now they've stopped moving. It's obvious that they can't tell which news is true at the moment. Very good. The middle-aged man smiled with satisfaction. I never thought that this kid would be so lucky. He has the cursed body, yet he's still alive after so many years. However, I won't give him the chance to return to the D family. Listen up, you must find him before the D family does. Kill him to silence him and prevent any future troubles. Chapter 43-45. Lower Realm. Beichen and the rest have already been in the Upper Realm for a few days. I wonder how they're doing in the Upper Realm. Did they reunite with their father? Shangguan Yingying's eyes flashed with a complicated and expectant light. Originally, she felt a little disappointed because she was separated from Beichen and the rest. However, when she thought about how Beichen was able to reunite with his family in the Upper Realm, she felt happy for Beichen from the bottom of her heart. Uncle and the rest should have a huge influence in the Upper Realm. I think it shouldn't be a problem to find Beichen. Xiren's face was filled with a warm smile. You don't have to worry about them. D family. Just from Lord Long and the rest's expression, you can tell how powerful this family is. The most important thing for us now is to increase our cultivation speed and break through to the Star Radiance realm as soon as possible. This way, we will be able to meet up with Beichen and Hong Zhuang at the D family. Shangguan Yingying nodded. I didn't expect there to be an upper realm. Just thinking about it makes me excited. I just received a letter from Tiangang sect. It's addressed to Beichen. However, they aren't here right now, so I opened it to take a look. It shouldn't be a problem, right? Beichen never hid anything from us. Moreover, sect head Situ also watched us grow up. It shouldn't be a problem. Xiren comforted. What's written on it? It's about Beichen's background. Previously, Uncle D went to Tiangang sect and found out about Beichen's true identity. Sect head Situ wrote this letter to let Beichen understand everything. However, I don't think it's necessary now. By the time we go up, Beichen would have already become the D family's young master. That's true. Haha. Xiren couldn't help but chuckle. When I first met Beichen, I felt that he couldn't be an abandoned orphan. Think about it. His looks are so demonic, and his strength is so abnormal. Who would abandon such a child? Now it seems that he is indeed a young master. I'm afraid it will take some time for Sect Master Situ and the others to receive the letter we sent back. The distance between here and the outside world is simply too far. I hope Sect Master Situ and the others won't be worried. Don't worry, it's fine. Xiren was very indifferent. Although one upper realm and the other lower realm are very far apart, Beichun can come down and find us at any time. Who knows, Beichun and Hong Zhuang might have already returned to see us before we even break through to the Star Radiance realm. Now that I think about it, if that's really the case, it would be a little embarrassing. Shangguan Yingying shrugged. We still have to seize the time to cultivate and improve our cultivation as soon as possible. That's right. A scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. We can't be too weak. Having said that, Xiren and Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but look at each other. Then, the two of them immediately began cultivating. What happened last time was still fresh in their minds. If it wasn't because they weren't strong enough, Beichun and Hong Zhuang wouldn't have been forced to enter the upper realm. What happened in the past couldn't be changed. They could only hope that such a thing wouldn't happen again. After a short period of depression, Xiaobai had already recovered and accepted the fact that he had already become Di Beichun's contracted beast. Chapter 43-46. Master, Xiao He and Xiao Bai have already awakened their attributes. When can I awaken my attributes? Ever since he found out that Xiao He and Xiao Bai's attributes had awakened on their own, White Lion had been very envious. Unfortunately, he could not awaken his attributes directly like Xiao He and Xiao Bai. He would probably need a device to awaken his attributes. Bailey Hongzhuang turned and saw White Lion's expectant look. Her lips immediately curled into a faint smile. She reached out and rubbed White Lion's soft head. You've already broken through to the Starlight Realm. You can indeed awaken your attributes. I'll ask Steward Wu later if he can borrow the device to help you awaken your attributes. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, White Lion's eyes lit up. Thank you, Master. What's there to thank me for? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. This is what I should do. White Lion chuckled. Its expression was filled with excitement and anticipation. It did not know what kind of attributes it would awaken. White Lion is a beast king. I wonder what kind of attributes it will awaken. Just thinking about it makes me very excited. Bailey Hongzhuang tapped her chin with her index finger. A glimmer of anticipation appeared in her clear black and white eyes. She was really looking forward to White Lion's attributes awakening. Thinking about it, once White Lion's attributes awakened, it would definitely become even more powerful. Indeed, I wonder what White Lion's attributes are. Di Beichun looked at White Lion's muscular body. Its fur is also white. Perhaps its attributes are also light. That I don't know. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. However, if that's really the case, it's pretty good. My contracted beast and I actually have the same attributes. If word gets out, I'm afraid everyone will find it very magical. Wife, after awakening our attributes, we'll have to cultivate our attributes. I heard that every attribute has its own guild. Among them, your light attribute has the highest status. It's called the Slight Light Sacred Guild. I'm afraid you'll have to join it. Di Beichun had a warm and gentle smile on his face. The upper realm had existed for so many years, and many things were perfect. It was very easy to find the organization. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Every attribute? Does that mean there are also dark guilds in your darkness-type guild? That's not it. Di Beichun shook his head. You know how much the upper realm dislikes dark energy. Normally, dark energy practitioners don't even dare to admit their attributes. If it weren't for my talent being maxed out, I'm afraid my position in the Raging Flames sect would be very low as well. Hence, there is no dark guild in the upper realm. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed slightly. It has all the attributes except for this one. This is too biased. Wife, since the upper realm doesn't have it, it doesn't mean we can't create one. Who knows? Maybe I'll create a dark guild in the future. Di Beichun's face was filled with confidence and a charming luster. I promised Master that I'll change everyone's view of dark energy. I'll let dark energy practitioners no longer have to bear the strange gazes of others. This dark guild might be one of the most important steps. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded heavily. Her pitch-black bright eyes rippled with a bright light. I believe in you. You'll definitely be able to do it. Although this plan may be crazy in the eyes of others, Bailey Hongzhuang did not think that it was unattainable. Everything depends on effort. Chapter 43-47. Wife, thank you for believing in me. Di Beichan gazed at the beautiful and fair face in front of him, and his eyes gradually softened. Everyone would think that he was crazy if he told them about his thoughts. Perhaps Hongzhuang was the only one who would believe him as usual. Beichan, I'm not comforting you. I really believe that you can do it. No, we can do it. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were serious. She always believed that there was nothing impossible in this world. Di Beichan held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and nodded solemnly. We will definitely do it. Knock, knock. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichan looked at each other and couldn't help but feel a little strange. In the entire Raging Flame school, the only people they were familiar with were Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao. However, the two of them had started cultivating in seclusion today and had only come to inform them in the morning. Obviously, they couldn't have come to find them at this time. Who could it be? As soon as they opened the door, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised to see a white figure. Junior Sister Bailey, I'm not disturbing you, am I? Xiao Rojin's face was filled with a warm and bright smile, and her voice was even more gentle and pleasant. Just listening to it made one's bones melt. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't expect Xiao Rojin to come find her. Logically speaking, her performance at the awakening ceremony was tantamount to stealing Xiao Rojin's limelight. Needless to say, Xiao Rojin's impression of her wouldn't be very good. After all, this was human nature. Moreover, Xiao Rojin had already determined that there were impurities in her attribute without carefully understanding her situation. It was clear that she was unwilling to admit how good others were. Now that she suddenly came to find her, she couldn't help but be vigilant. Senior Sister Xiao, I didn't expect you to come find me. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Her generous and decent appearance didn't reveal the slightest bit of her inner thoughts. May I ask why Senior Sister Xiao is looking for me? It's like this. You've already awakened a light attribute talent during the awakening ceremony. Before you came, I was the only light cultivator in the entire Raging Flame school. Ever since he found out that you're also a cultivator of the light attribute, and that your talent is almost at the maximum level, the sect master was very happy. He specially instructed me to bring you to the Holy Light Assembly to register. The smile on Xiao Rojin's face was gentle and charming. She spoke slowly and clearly. Her soft voice, coupled with her delicate and pretty face, really gave people a pleasing feeling. So, if Junior Sister Bailey is free now, why don't we make a trip to the Radiant Saint Assembly? After becoming a member of the Radiant Sacred Assembly, you will be able to obtain the cultivation method of the Radiant Force. You might not know this since you're new to the upper plane, but cultivating elemental energy is much more powerful than cultivating basic origin energy. I believe you'll like it. Looking at the gentle and lovely Xiao Rojin in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but sigh in her heart. This Xiao Rojin really looked like a caring sister. Gentle, beautiful, and talented. No wonder she had so many suitors in the House of Raging Flames. Okay, then I'll have to trouble Senior Sister Xiao. You're welcome. We're all from the same sect, so this is what I should do. Xiao Rojin smiled gently. Then, Junior Sister, pack up and we'll set off. Okay. Bailey Hongzhuang walked into the room and told Di Beichan the purpose of Xiao Rojin's visit. Chapter 43-48. Di Beichan warned Bailey Hongzhuang. Although Xiao Rojin looked harmless on the surface, he was not a superficial person who only looked at the surface. To be able to reach such a position in the Raging Flame school, she was definitely not an idiot. Sometimes, the more harmless a person looked, the more shocking their methods were. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Don't worry, I understand. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was not careless, Di Beiqian was relieved. Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Rojin's journey together immediately attracted the attention of the cultivators in the Raging Flame School. Everyone thought that Xiao Rojin and Bailey Hongzhuang would be like fire and water, but they did not expect to see the two of them chatting and laughing as they walked together. It was completely out of everyone's expectations. I thought that a fight would definitely break out between the two of them. I didn't think that they would get along so well. I knew that with senior sister Zhao's magnanimous personality, she definitely wouldn't argue with Bailey Hongzhuang over this matter. Isn't that great? The Raging Flame School has 2 light attribute cultivators. Speaking of which, we're also proud. You're right. Senior sister Zhao's personality has always been very good. She doesn't put on airs. Although it's usually very difficult to get close to her, that doesn't stop me from admiring and liking her. Bailey Hongzhuang listened to the discussions around her, and her eyes could not help but fall on Xiao Rojin. This woman's reputation in the Raging Flame School was very good. Basically, the majority of cultivators had a good impression of her. It was really not easy for her to reach this step. At the same time, she did not have any thoughts of competing with Xiao Rojin. She had only come here to cultivate properly. As long as others did not make trouble for her, she would definitely not take the initiative to provoke others. If they could get along so well, that would be pretty good. Senior sister Xiao, do you know where a contracted beast needs to awaken their attributes? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask. Originally, she wanted to borrow it from Steward Wu, but after thinking about it, she felt that other people should also have contracted beasts that were undergoing attribute awakening. It was impossible for everyone to find a way to borrow the innate talent awakening machine. There should be a special place for it. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao Rojin's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Junior sister Bailey, has your contracted beast reached the time to awaken its innate talent? I just happened to reach it. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Baisher's situation was no longer a secret in the Inferno sect. Many cultivators had already noticed it. Moreover, ever since the battle with Di Wentao, White Lion had already become famous. Junior sister's method of nurturing contracted beasts is truly impressive. Xiao Rojin sighed. Wanting to nurture a contracted beast to the Starlight Realm is not a simple matter. It's truly admirable. Senior sister Xiao, you flatter me. There is indeed a place in Rome, in city where contracted beasts can undergo a tribute awakening, but they need to pay a certain fee. It just so happens that we will pass by that place on our way to the Holy Light Assembly. Why don't I point it out to you later? Thank you very much. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. It just so happened that she had earned some spirit stones from the D family, so she was very well off now. It would be more convenient to trouble Steward Wu. Chapter 43-49. Junior sister Bailey, your talent in the light attribute is very powerful. It's almost maxed out. This matter has spread throughout the entire Rome city. Xiao Rojin sighed and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a bit of shame. When my talent awakened, I was at level 8. I originally thought that I was pretty good, but I didn't expect your level to be so amazing. In front of you, I really feel ashamed. Senior sister Xiao, you flatter me. I was just lucky. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Before awakening, she didn't know that it would be like this. Junior sister, you don't have to be so humble. If it weren't for some impurities when you awakened, you might have become the Holy Maiden of Light. You may not know, but as long as you're a maxed out light attribute cultivator, you could become the representative of the Holy Assembly. In fact, you're already maxed out, so it's not impossible for you to become the Holy Maiden of Light. Senior sister, you also said that there are impurities in my talent. This so-called maxed out level is not really maxed out level. Besides, I don't have such big ambitions. This kind of existence is too far away from me. I just need to cultivate well. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. Ever since she guessed the situation with Di Beiqian, she had no thoughts about being the Holy Maiden of Light. She didn't even have freedom. So what was the use of such a title? Xiao Rojin quietly looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. After seeing her calm expression and clear eyes, she also chuckled. Perhaps it's because Junior's sister has nothing else to ask for that the heavens are especially kind to you. Bailey Hongzhuang followed Xiao Rojin through the streets of Rome and city. In front of a building, Xiao Rojin stopped. Junior sister Bailey, this is the place where contract beasts awaken. When the time comes, you can bring your contract beast here to awaken. Looking in the direction Xiao Rojin pointed, Bailey Hongzhuang was stunned by the words, Talent Awakening, on the signboard. A smile suddenly appeared on her lips. White Lion was now looking forward to the awakening of his talent. She was also curious about what kind of attribute White Lion would awaken. The two of them didn't stay here for long. Instead, they continued to walk for a while before stopping in front of a snow-white building. Under the sunlight, the white building exuded a holy light. The whole building was round and looked round and warm, just like the holy and comfortable feeling the power of light gave people. On the plaque at the front of the building, there were 4 majestic words written in gold. Holy Light Assembly. This is the Holy Light Assembly. I'll bring you in. You should come here often in the future. Xiao Rojin smiled gently and walked into the Holy Assembly with Bailey Hongzhuang. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang entered the Holy Light Assembly, she felt that everything here was so bright, as if all the filth had nowhere to hide. At a glance, the people inside the building were all wearing white clothes. After seeing that the person who came was Xiao Rojin, many people's faces showed a smile. Xiao Rojin, why are you here today? A woman about the same age as Xiao Rojin slowly walked over. Her white clothes set off her fair and clear skin, and her facial features were exquisite and deep. Compared to Xiao Rojin's gentle and lovely appearance, she was more beautiful and flamboyant. Chapter 4350. Junior Sister. Listening to Xiao Rojin's words, Jiang Qiantong's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise, and then her eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, Jiang Qiantong had already noticed Bailey Hongzhuang from the moment she walked into the sacred assembly. Such a beautiful woman was bound to be a moving scene no matter where she went. It was impossible not to notice her. She even noticed Bailey Hongzhuang first before noticing her old rival, Xiao Rojin. Is this the cultivator with the full level of the light element that your school of flames just discovered? Xiao Rojin nodded with a faint smile. Jiang Qiantong, you're quite well informed. You received the news so quickly. It's only been a few days since our school of flames talent awakened. Such a big piece of news has already spread throughout Rome and city in such a short time. Jiang Qiantong chuckled. We're all members of the sacred assembly. It's impossible not to notice this kind of news. You're right. Xiao Rojin's smile gradually widened. Her gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang, and she said, in the past, we've always competed with each other. But this time is different. My junior sister's talent has reached the full level. If it weren't for the slight flaw, she might be the next saintess. Xiao Rojin raised her eyebrows slightly. She looked at Jiang Qiantong with a hint of pride. However, although there are slight flaws, it shouldn't be a problem. I think with my junior sister's talent and potential, it won't be long before she occupies a very important position in the sacred assembly. You have to be polite to her. Following Xiao Rojin's words, Jiang Qiantong looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a hint of hostility and disdain. It's indeed very impressive to have the full level of talent. But since there are impurities, it's not really the full level. You better not be too arrogant. At the same time, many people from the Holy Assembly also heard Xiao Rojin's words and immediately came over. Ever since the news about the House of Raging Flame spread, everyone was filled with curiosity about Bailey Hongzhuang, who was known to be extremely talented. Apart from Miss Xiao, who was rumored to be the next Holy Maiden of the Light, they had never heard of such a level of talent. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang was here, everyone naturally wanted to see who she was. However, after listening to Xiao Rojin's words, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a bit more displeasure. Jiang Qiantong is right. Although she is talented, she is still a newcomer from the lower world. It is not good for her to be so arrogant. At this time, another man came over, his handsome white face rippling with a faint smile, but his words were directly directed at Bailey Hongzhuang. Blue Flame, I didn't expect you to come to the sacred assembly today. After Xiao Rojin saw the blue flame, a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. Blue Flame nodded. I happened to hear that Jiang Qiantong was here for the sacred assembly, so I came to take a look. I didn't expect to see a big shot who has been in the limelight recently. Chapter 43:51. Master, this is your first time in the Holy Assembly. Why are these guys targeting you? When Blackie saw this scene, he was also displeased. Master's talent was outstanding. Even if these people were envious, they shouldn't target her right from the start. It was too ungracious. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a mocking light. She sneered in her heart. This is senior sister Zhao's trick. She's flattering me to death. Flattering you to death? Xiao He was stunned. That's right, Bailey Hongzhuang said in a low voice. On the surface, she didn't say anything bad about me. Every word she said was praising me. However, she deliberately mentioned the Holy Maiden and reminded everyone to be careful with their attitude towards me. In this way, everyone won't think that it's her idea. On the contrary, everyone will think that it's all my idea. I'm just a newcomer. I just came to the upper realm. I don't know anything yet. I'm so arrogant. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't like me under such circumstances. She was wondering why Xiao Rojin was so kind. It turned out that this was the main point. She took the initiative to bring her to the Holy Assembly. On the surface, it seemed like she was taking care of her junior sister. In fact, she was here to help her create a group of enemies. It was really a good trick. Xiao Hei's face turned ugly when she understood all this. Master, what should we do? We can't just suffer like this, right? It's not worth it. Ordinary people may suffer in such a situation. However, it doesn't mean that I can only suffer in silence. A cold light flashed in Bailey Hongzhuang's dark eyes. However, she didn't show it on her face. Was she praising people? It wasn't like she didn't know how to do it. I'm just a newcomer. To be honest, I came from the lower realm. There are many things in the upper realm that I don't know. Although I just awakened my talent during the awakening ceremony, I know my identity very well. I won't overstep my boundaries. Bailey Hongzhuang lowered her voice. Her delicate little face was full of worry and uneasiness. It was obvious that she was frightened by what Jiang Qiantong and Bailey Hongzhuang had said. As the voice of Bailey Hongzhuang fell, Jiang Qiantong and Lan Yin could not help but look at each other. The dissatisfaction in their eyes suddenly dissipated and was replaced by a trace of doubt. She had thought that Bailey Hongzhuang was a self-righteous person, but judging from her behavior, it didn't seem like that. Naturally, they had already heard that Bailey Hongzhuang came from the lower realm. However, most people wouldn't be willing to talk about such a background. However, Bailey Hongzhuang actually took the initiative to talk about it. It could be seen that she wasn't an arrogant person, because if she really thought she was infallible, then she would never reveal her weakness. Suddenly, the way Jiang Qianong and Lan Yin looked at Xiao Rojin became strange. Bailey Hongzhuang had already made it clear that she didn't know anything about the upper realm. Naturally, she wouldn't think too much about it. In this way, what Xiao Rojin said might not be Bailey Hongzhuang's idea, but her own. Xiao Rojin's face turned pale. She didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to say something like that. Naturally, she understood that Jiang Qiantong and Lan Yin already knew something. Chapter 43:52. Actually, I've always wanted to learn from senior sister Xiao, but I didn't have the chance to get close to her. Today, senior sister Xiao is the first one to talk to me, and she even took the initiative to bring me to the Holy Assembly. I'm really surprised. Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Xiao Rojin, her pretty face full of admiration. I already knew when I joined the Blazing Flame School that senior sister Xiao is the disciple with the highest status in the school. I'm most happy to have the opportunity to learn from senior sister Xiao. Senior sister Xiao also said that she would take good care of me. Before I came, I really didn't expect that the senior sister from the upper world would be so nice. I will definitely learn humbly and won't be arrogant. Seniors, you can rest assured. If Jiang Qiantong and Lan Yin had some doubts before, after listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the two of them no longer had any doubts. It turned out that today was the first time Bailey Hongzhuang talked to Xiao Rojin, and it was Xiao Rojin who took the initiative to bring her here. Since she was a girl who didn't know anything, she probably didn't know anything about the current situation of the Holy Assembly, let alone the saintess of the Holy Assembly. Xiao Rojin, I didn't expect that after not seeing you for a while, you're still as insidious as before. Jiang Qiantong looked at Xiao Rojin with a chuckle, her expression full of disdain. She's just a little sister who just came from the lower world and doesn't know anything. How can you treat her like this? Your tolerance is really surprising. She had been fighting with Xiao Rojin for a long time, and she knew her character very well. This fellow usually looked gentle and kind, but she knew very well that Xiao Rojin's heart was very sinister. Back then, she didn't see that, so she suffered a big loss at Xiao Rojin's hands. I don't understand what you're talking about. Xiao Rojin looked confused. I'm telling the truth. The truth is the truth. However, if you want me to help you, then you've made a mistake in your calculations. She's from the Blazing Flame School. If she wants to threaten you, she'll threaten your position. It has nothing to do with me for now. Jiang Qiantong put her hands in front of her chest, and a teasing smile appeared on her lips. Now, there was a good show to watch. Lan Yin shrugged. I don't understand the things between you women. I still have things to do, so I'll leave first. Lan Yin, wait. Seeing Lan Yin was about to leave, Jiang Qiantong couldn't help but stop him. I'll go with you. After Jiang Qiantong and Lan Yin left, the way Xiao Rojin looked at Bailey Hongzhuang changed, but she soon smiled again. Junior Sister Bailey, I was just trying to raise the morale of our Raging Flame School in front of them. You're a cultivator with max-level talent, and your position in the Holy Light Assembly won't be simple. Their sects are our competitors, so I'm afraid we'll run into them often in the future. Jiang Qiantong said that just to drive a wedge between us. Don't be fooled. Looking at the speed at which Xiao Rojin's expression changed, Bailey Hongzhuang sighed in her heart. The speed at which this woman changed her expression was indeed extraordinary. She was obviously furious, but she could still smile so gently on the surface. It was really not easy. Senior Sister Xiao, I understand. I'll listen to you, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Xiao Rojin looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, and her heart was also complicated. She didn't understand whether Bailey Hongzhuang's performance at the moment was fake or serious. Chapter 43-53. After Jiang Qiantong and Lan Yin left, Xiao Rojin took Bailey Hongzhuang to the second floor of the Holy Light Assembly. The news of your talent awakening has spread very quickly. The people of the Holy Light Assembly have already noticed you. I'll take you to register your information first, and then find a vice president to take you to receive the martial arts technique. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Sorry to trouble you, Senior Sister. There are not many light attribute cultivators, so there are not many people in the Holy Light Assembly at the moment. After successfully registering her information, Bailey Hongzhuang received her own robe and name tag. From now on, she was a member of the Holy Light Assembly. Then, Xiao Rojin and Bailey Hongzhuang stopped in front of a door. Knock, knock. Xiao Rojin knocked twice and said softly, Vice President, I brought Bailey Hongzhuang to report. Please come in. The door opened, and Xiao Rojin and Bailey Hongzhuang walked in together. Bailey Hongzhuang found a woman in her 40s sitting in the room. She was wearing a white robe of the Holy Light Assembly, and her hair was neatly combed. She looked serious and serious. With just one look, Bailey Hongzhuang felt that the vice president of the Holy Light Assembly was a very old-fashioned person. Vice President. Xiao Rojin and Bailey Hongzhuang bowed together. Gong Tianfeng raised her head and looked at the two people in front of her. This is the light attribute cultivator with the highest level of talent in the Raging Flame sect? Yes, that's her. Xiao Rojin replied. I'm Bailey Hongzhuang. Greetings, Vice President. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped her hands. Gong Tianfeng nodded slightly. Very good. It's very rare to see someone with the highest level of talent. Your light attribute talent is so strong. It shows that you and the Holy Light Assembly are fated. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and did not comment. Xiaorojin, you go out first. I want to talk to Bailey Hongzhuang alone. Hearing this, Xiaorojin's expression was slightly stunned. Although she wanted to say something more, she could only leave. Yes. After the door closed, Gong Tianfeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again and said, Welcome to the Holy Light Assembly. Thank you, Vice President. You're welcome. It's a joyous occasion for the Holy Assembly to have a talent like you join us. Bailey Hongzhuang listened to Gong Tianfeng's words and secretly cursed in her heart. The Vice President said so many words, but she didn't know what she was really trying to say to her. She was very clear that although her talent was indeed not bad, Gong Tianfeng definitely did not keep her here just to welcome her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have needed to drive Xiaorojin out. I heard that you're already married? Suddenly, Gong Tianfeng changed the topic and asked. Yes. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I didn't expect you to be married at such a young age. This is really unexpected. Huh? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. For cultivators, she was indeed married at an early age. However, as far as she knew, there were many people who were married at this age. The person you're married to seems to have awakened the darkness attribute. Gong Tianfeng's eyes stared straight at Bailey Hongzhuang, staring into her eyes as if she wanted to see through everything about her, see through her. Yes, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed slightly. For some reason, when Gong Tianfeng asked this question, she had a bad premonition in her heart. Chapter 43-54. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's affirmative answer, Gong Tianfeng's expression turned cold. You should know that the light attribute is the most respected attribute in the upper realm, while the dark attribute is the most unpopular. The dark attribute is dark, cold, and icy. It's completely different from our light attribute. Most people who awaken the dark attribute are more sinister. When she heard this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but frown and interrupt Gong Tianfeng. Vice President, the awakened attribute doesn't seem to have anything to do with one's personality, right? Attributes weren't things like that random. She could not understand why the Vice President would link attributes with human nature. This was too ridiculous. Just based on Beichon, this point could be completely overturned. However, seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang refuted her words, Gong Tianfeng's tone became more serious. How is it not related? There must be a connection between the two. This can be seen from the war back then. If it weren't for the dark attributes' sinister personality, why would they do such a thing? Vice President, there are all kinds of birds in the sea. There are good and bad cultivators of every attribute. What happened back then was because there were some exceptions among the dark attribute cultivators. They were indeed in the wrong. But now, your words have overturned a whole boat of people. You seem to disagree with my judgment. Gong Tianfeng's face suddenly became serious. She looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a gaze full of dissatisfaction. We've always thought so. That's why the dark attribute cultivators in the upper realm are like rats crossing the street. I hope you can change your mind from today onwards. Master, why is this Vice President so strange? From the looks of it, she seems to have a deep hatred for dark energy practitioners. I wonder who has offended her. Xiaohei could not help but complain through telepathy. It thought that there was something important that made its master stay, but it did not expect that it was just nonsense. It was really speechless. Who knows? Bailey Hongzhuang was also speechless. Maybe she's been in a high position for too long and thinks that her thoughts are right. She's used to everyone listening to her. We don't have to care about her. Just keep quiet. She knew very well that no matter what she said, she would not be able to achieve any effect on a person like the Vice President. Since that was the case, it would be better to keep quiet and not provoke her. After all, she still wanted to obtain the light attribute cultivation method from the Holy Assembly. There was no benefit in offending the vice president. After seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang did not refute, Gong Tianfeng's expression softened a little. However, her next words made Bailey Hongzhuang dumbfounded. Since you're marrying a dark attribute cultivator, I don't think that you're suited for each other. You are a max-level light attribute cultivator. In the future, you will have a high honor in our radiant sacred assembly. If everyone knows that you are together with a dark attribute cultivator, it will affect everyone's impression of the radiant sacred assembly. Moreover, I heard that he's a dark attribute cultivator. From the looks of it, his thoughts must be even darker. It's better for you to leave him earlier. Chapter 43-55. Facing Gong Tianfeng's self-righteous appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang only felt that it was ridiculous. Is there something wrong with this woman's brain? As the saying goes, one would rather tear down a temple than a marriage. This woman actually wants me to break up with Beichen. Who does she think she is? Vice President, I know better than you whether my husband and I are suitable for each other. You don't have to worry about it. Bailey Hongzhuang spat out the words, don't have to worry about it. If it wasn't for the fact that this woman was the vice president of the Holy Light Assembly, she would have scolded her. After roaming the world for so many years, she had seen many strange people, but no one was as strange as this woman in front of her. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't seem to take her words to heart, Gong Tianfeng couldn't help but frown. Her already serious face became even more serious. Bailey Hongzhuang, I'm saying this for your own good. Then I'll have to thank the vice president for her good intentions. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was cold, and her beautiful face was filled with a trace of coldness. Gong Tianfeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and knew what she was thinking. She immediately raised her voice and said unhappily, if you want to join the Holy Light Assembly, you must sever your relationship with people with the dark attribute. Otherwise, our Holy Light Assembly will not accept you. Following Gong Tianfeng's words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but raise her eyes. Her tightly knitted brows were starting to slip. I didn't know that the Holy Light Assembly would have such a rule. I've seen people who don't discriminate, but this is the first time I've seen such discrimination. Vice Guild Leader, do you judge people based on their attributes? Then what about cultivators with the gold, wood, water, fire, and earth attributes? Let's not talk about cultivators with the other attributes for now. In short, we can't accept cultivators with the dark attribute. Then there's nothing to say. Bailey Hongzhuang's face turned cold. Gong Tianfeng's face suddenly became incomparably ugly in her eyes. What do you mean by this? Gong Tianfeng frowned and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with dissatisfaction. She was very dissatisfied with his attitude. Whatever you think it means is what it means. Bailey Hongzhuang said coldly. Pay attention to your attitude. My attitude? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and sneered. Anyway, I'm not going to join your Holy Light Assembly. Do you want me to treat you like a vice president? As soon as he said that, Gong Tianfeng's expression changed. She frowned and asked coldly, what did you say? I said I don't plan to join the Holy Light Assembly. Bailey Hongzhuang emphasized again, her tone firm and resolute. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and walked out of the house. What kind of attitude is this? Gong Tianfeng said angrily. However, the only response she got was the sound of the door slamming shut. Xiao Rojin had been waiting outside the house. When she suddenly saw Bailey Hongzhuang walk out of the house like this, her eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Junior Sister Bailey, what's wrong with you? Nothing. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. I didn't expect the threshold of the Holy Light Assembly to be so strange. I'm afraid I'm not fated to be here. Wait a moment, I'll go ask the vice president. Xiao Rojin couldn't help but say. No need. Chapter 43-56. Master, are we leaving the Holy Light Assembly just like that? Xiao He had a complicated look on her face. She knew that under such circumstances, her master would definitely make such a choice. However, leaving the Holy Light Assembly meant that her master would not be able to obtain the method to cultivate the power of light in the future. This was a huge problem in the upper realm. Now, everyone was cultivating their elemental powers. As long as they joined the guild, they would be able to obtain the cultivation method. However, her master had rejected her just like that. Based on her understanding of her master, she would definitely not turn back. If we don't leave, are we waiting to quarrel with that old hag? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Her voice was filled with disdain and disgust. She had never seen such a detestable old hag. Every word that came out of her mouth was detestable. If she did not leave now, she did not doubt that she would quarrel with the old hag if she continued to stay there. But if that's the case, you won't have the method to cultivate the power of light, master. Xiaohei lowered her voice. Her round face was filled with concern. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. There will always be a way. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. Her expression was indifferent and indifferent. She believed that there would always be a way out. There would always be a way. Besides, it was already impossible for her to separate from Di Beichen. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiaohei understood that her master had made up her mind. She immediately nodded. That's right. There will definitely be a way. I believe that not everyone in the Holy Light Assembly is like this detestable old hag. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. That's right. Let's go back first. Let's not talk about this vice president anymore. Just talking about her makes me sick. After Xiao Rojin saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she walked into the vice president's room. She was also very confused. Before Bailey Hongzhuang came here, the president and vice president had always been looking forward to Bailey Hongzhuang's arrival. After all, a light attribute cultivator with such talent was a great resource for the Holy Light Assembly. It was because of this that she took the initiative to bring Bailey Hongzhuang here. On one hand, she could show her generosity to the cultivators of the Blazing Flame School. On the other hand, she could leave a good impression on the president and vice president. She just didn't expect things to turn out this way after Bailey Hongzhuang entered the room and chatted with the vice president for a while. It was really beyond her expectations. Vice President, what happened? Xiao Rojin looked at Gong Tianfeng in confusion. No matter how she guessed, she couldn't figure out what could make Bailey Hongzhuang decide to give up joining the Holy Assembly. This Bailey Hongzhuang is simply rotten wood that cannot be carved. Gong Tianfeng's anger still hadn't subsided. She had been the vice president for so many years, but she had never seen a light attribute cultivator as arrogant as Bailey Hongzhuang. She actually dared to directly contradict her and show disdain for the Radiant Sacred Assembly. She was simply angered to death. I only asked her to leave that dark attribute man of hers. She actually refused to join the Radiant Assembly. Simply unreasonable. Hearing this, Xiao Rojin immediately understood. A trace of joy quietly appeared in the depths of her eyes. Actually, she didn't really want Bailey Hongzhuang to join the Holy Light Assembly. If that happened, her position would definitely be replaced by Bailey Hongzhuang. Chapter 4357. She didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would encounter such a problem when she joined the Holy Light Assembly. As a result, her original worries naturally dissipated. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang didn't join the Holy Light Assembly, she wouldn't be able to obtain the cultivation method of light energy. In that case, no matter how strong her light attribute talent was, it would be meaningless. Bailey Hongzhuang, who was originally envied by everyone, was suddenly in the same situation as Di Beichen. Both of them had max-level talent, but neither of them had a cultivation method. It was really interesting. Vice President Bailey Hongzhuang and her husband have always had a good relationship. In the Raging Flames sect, the two of them are known as the Golden Boy and Jade Girl. They are a pair that everyone envies. Gong Tianfeng sneered. Golden Boy and Jade Girl? What a joke. How can a light attribute cultivator be together with a dark attribute cultivator? From the day their attributes were different, they were no longer on the same side. Xiao Rojin revealed a difficult expression, But according to my understanding, it's impossible for Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beiqian to separate. Their feelings for each other are very deep. No matter what happens, it's impossible for them to separate. Love is stronger than gold. Gong Tianfeng's smile contained a bit of ridicule. When I was young, I was very fearless, so I thought so. Just wait and see. When the time comes, Bailey Hongzhuang will definitely come back and ask to join the Holy Light Assembly. She won't give up on cultivating the light attribute just like that. Hearing this, Xiao Rojin looked at Gong Tianfeng with a complicated gaze. She had always known that the vice president had a cold personality and didn't care about feelings, but she didn't expect that the vice president would ask Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beiqian to separate. No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude was so firm. Most people would make such a decision. However, in this way, Bailey Hongzhuang would be giving up her future. If Bailey Hongzhuang comes back at that time, will the Holy Light Assembly accept her? Xiao Rojin asked tentatively. Gong Tianfeng paused for a moment, then said, when the time comes, it will depend on her attitude. She was so determined today. I wonder what kind of expression she will have when the time comes. After Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the Blazing Flame School, she acted as if nothing had happened. It was just a cultivation method, so it didn't matter if she didn't have it. However, without Di Beiqian, she couldn't bear it. Wife, is there something on your mind? Di Beiqian stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. He had been with Bailey Hongzhuang for a long time, so he knew Bailey Hongzhuang's character very well. Although she didn't show it, he could tell from some details. No. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head, and a gentle smile appeared on her beautiful face. You've been acting a little strange ever since you came back from the Holy Light Assembly. I saw it. What happened? Can't you tell me? Di Beiqian's eyes were deep and gentle. Let me guess. Something that can make you unhappy, and at the same time, you're unwilling to tell me. Could it be that when you went to the Holy Light Assembly, someone mentioned my darkness attribute? As soon as he said this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart also sighed. Di Beiqian's observation had always been amazing. This matter is a little complicated. Chapter 43:58. As soon as they opened the door, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beiqian saw Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao's anxious expressions. Junior sister, I heard that you refused to join the Holy Assembly. As soon as the door was opened, Wang Yanhan couldn't help but ask the question in his heart. As Wang Yanhan's voice fell, Di Beiqian's eyes suddenly changed. Even if he thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's trip to the Holy Assembly might not be pleasant, he did not expect that it would be to the extent of refusing to join the Holy Assembly. Yes, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. It's not a big deal. Hongzhuang, you're too calm. Yi Haomiao couldn't help but sigh when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's indifferent expression. Do you know that only the Holy Assembly has the method to cultivate the light energy? Even light elemental cultivators were not allowed to teach others their cultivation methods without the permission of the Radiant Sacred Assembly. Since you refuse to join the Holy Assembly, it means that you won't have the method to cultivate the light energy in the future. I know. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Her expression was still indifferent. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's indifferent expression, Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao were a little anxious. Do you really understand? If you refuse like this, you definitely won't be able to keep up with everyone's cultivation speed in the future. If you stay in the upper realm, you won't have any room for improvement. You're giving up your bright future. I know. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Thank you for your concern, but I've already made up my mind. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao were puzzled. They couldn't understand why Bailey Hongzhuang was so determined. Can you tell us why? Wang Yanhan couldn't help but ask. If it's because of some unhappiness during your trip to the Holy Assembly, you can bear with it for the time being. After all, your future is the most important. It's already in the past. Why bring it up again? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Actually, it's not a big deal not to cultivate. I'm also an inscriptionist. If I want to gain a foothold in the upper realm, it might be faster to use my identity as an inscriptionist. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had already made up her mind, Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao sighed. Although we don't know what happened, since you've already made your decision, we'll support you. Thank you. After sending Wan Yanhan and Yi Hao Miao away, Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Beichun. I'll cultivate the dark energy with you from now on. Others didn't know that she had awakened two attributes, but Di Beichun knew. Even if she couldn't cultivate the power of light, she could still cultivate the power of darkness with Di Beichun. Although her talent in the dark energy was slightly lacking, so what? Di Beichun took a deep look at Bailey Hongzhuang. In the end, he decided not to ask about the reason. He understood the importance of cultivation for Bailey Hongzhuang. If it wasn't for something that touched her bottom line, she would never have made such a choice. Since Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't willing to say, he wouldn't ask anymore. Okay, let's cultivate the dark energy together. Di Beichun smiled and nodded. Chapter 43:59. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang decided not to join the Radiant Sacred Assembly, all the cultivators in the Sect of Flames were dumbfounded. They all thought that Bailey Hongzhuang had really gone mad. She had actually given up such a great opportunity. With her talent for the element of light, her status would definitely surpass most cultivators in the future if she joined the Radiant Sacred Assembly. This was an opportunity that everyone envied. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had actually given up under such circumstances. Giving up on the element of light meant that not only would Bailey Hongzhuang not have the opportunity to surpass ordinary people, but she would also end up at the bottom of the upper world in the future. Under such circumstances, everyone was extremely curious about her decision to leave the Radiant Sacred Assembly. Immediately, many people began to investigate the reason. There was strength in numbers. Before long, everyone discovered the reason why Bailey Hongzhuang did not want to join the Radiant Sacred Assembly. Before, I thought that Bailey Hongzhuang had gone mad for making a decision like that. But now that I know the reason, I suddenly understand her. Yeah, I never thought that the Radiant Sacred Assembly's conditions would be so harsh. She can only join if she leaves Di Beichun. It really is difficult to make a decision like that. Bailey Hongzhuang really does have deep feelings for Di Beichun. She's willing to give up her future for him. At that moment, the cultivators of the Sect of Flames could not help but shake their heads and sigh. They never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would have to make such a huge decision. Moreover, Bailey Hongzhuang's decision was so firm. All of his confusion instantly turned into understanding. Everyone understood Bailey Hongzhuang's situation. They just felt that it was a pity. Wan Yanhan and Yi Hao Miao originally did not understand why Bailey Hongzhuang would make a decision like that. However, after understanding the reason, the two of them understood. They never thought that there would be a problem like that. Aren't the Radiant Sacred Assembly's conditions a little too strange? Yi Hao Miao looked puzzled. You want to break them up just because of their attributes? Are you crazy? The Holy Light Assembly has always been the dominant force in the upper realm. Perhaps they're used to being arrogant, so even this request is different from the rest. Wan Yanhan shook his head. I should have thought about it. Based on Junior Sister's character, she would never give up on her future unless something crossed her bottom line. There's nothing we can do about it now. If it were any other reason, there might still be room for negotiation. However, there's nothing we can do about it now. Yi Hao Miao spread out his hands. With little Junior Sister and Di Beichun's relationship, it's impossible for them to be separated. Therefore, when the Holy Light Assembly made such a request, little Junior Sister has no fate with the Holy Light Assembly. However, just as Junior Sister said, she is also an inscription master. It won't be a problem for her to gain a foothold in the upper realm. Yi Hao Miao nodded slightly. His face was filled with joy. Fortunately, Hongzhuang has such an identity. Otherwise, it would really be terrible. Similarly, after this matter spread, everyone was puzzled by the Holy Light Assembly's request. Chapter 43:60. My dear wife, I already know the reason. Di Beichun slowly walked into the room. His handsome face was full of guilt and heartache. I've wronged you. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and shook her head. What kind of grievance is this? I'm just not joining the Holy Light Assembly. It's not a big deal. My dear wife, not joining the Holy Light Assembly will have a great impact on your path of cultivation, Di Beichan said in a low voice. He knew how important the path of cultivation was to Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that she had given it up so freely, it was all for his sake. So you mean you want to separate from me? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and asked. No. Di Beichan's eyes suddenly darkened. He pulled Bailey Hongzhuang over and kissed her deeply. It was not until Bailey Hongzhuang was out of breath that his voice rang out again. I will never allow you to leave me. Di Beichan was very strong and domineering. It was as if he wanted to rub Bailey Hongzhuang into his bones. Bailey Hongzhuang only felt a little pain, but the smile on her face gradually widened. So, this is the right decision. Actually, we're not the ones who will lose the most. Di Beichan hugged Bailey Hongzhuang. A cold light flashed across his ink-black, jade-like eyes. The one who will lose the most is the Holy Light Assembly. It's a loss for any force to miss a genius like my wife. You think so highly of me. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with happiness. In fact, as long as Di Beichan was with her, everything else was not a problem. My wife is the best. When the time comes, they will definitely regret it. Di Beichan's eyes were serious. He didn't look like he was trying to comfort or joke. He believed that this day wouldn't be too far away. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and rested her chin on Di Beichan's shoulder. Let's cultivate the power of darkness together. We'll impress everyone in the future. All right. After Wu Wenfeng found out about this matter, he only felt that his enthusiasm was suddenly splashed with cold water. Originally, he was still immersed in the joy of discovering such a genius light attribute cultivator for the School of Flames. Who would have thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would give up on joining the Radiant Sacred Assembly in the blink of an eye? This was quite a blow to him. Steward Wu, if you want to say something, just get straight to the point. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a calm and polite smile as she spoke slowly. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, Wu Wenfeng knew that she already knew what he was going to say. Bailey Hongzhuang, I've already heard about what happened to you at the Radiant Sacred Assembly. Wu Wenfeng's voice was low. Do you really think it's worth it? His wise and sharp eyes looked straight at Bailey Hongzhuang. Even though he already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had rejected the Radiant Sacred Assembly, he still wanted to ask again. Was it worth it? Was she really willing to give up this rare opportunity when she could have shone so brightly? It's worth it. Bailey Hongzhuang faced Wu Wenfeng's gaze. Her voice was firm and her expression was calm. After knowing about this matter, everyone seemed to like to ask her this question. However, no matter how many people asked or how many times she asked, her answer would not change. After noticing the unwavering determination in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, Wu Wenfeng already understood. However, a complicated feeling arose in his heart. Chapter 4361. Since you're so determined, I won't try to persuade you anymore. A smile appeared on Wu Wenfeng's face once again. Actually, after knowing about this matter, I've already thought of a way. However, according to the vice president of the Light Guild, I'm afraid she won't change her mind. This isn't the first time she's done something like this. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Similar things have happened before? Have they been separated by the vice president? Although the possibility of a light and dark attribute cultivator being a couple was not very high, it was still possible. However, she did not expect the vice president to insist on this. They were separated. Wu Wenfeng slowly said. I didn't expect them to be separated so easily. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed faintly. She could understand that in the upper realm where strength spoke louder than words, some cultivators would indeed make such a decision. However, this also proved that their feelings for each other were not deep enough. Otherwise, they would not have separated just like that. She could not judge who was right and who was wrong. She was just a little emotional. The one who was separated is not someone else, but herself. Following Wu Wenfeng's words, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. Her eyes instantly widened, and her beautiful face was filled with a strange luster. Herself. That's right. Wu Wenfeng nodded. Back then, Gong Tianfeng's husband was also a dark attribute cultivator. Previously, when they were together, their relationship was also very good. However, after Gong Tianfeng found out that she was a light attribute cultivator and her husband was a dark attribute cultivator, she completely ended their relationship. When this news first spread, everyone sighed. Until now, we have to say that Gong Tianfeng is indeed ruthless. It's really unbelievable. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but sigh. It's just a matter of attributes. She just had to escalate it to a problem of human nature. I really can't understand her thinking. Master, I also think that this kind of woman deserves to be alone for the rest of her life. Xiaohei could not help but speak up. Previously, it had thought that Gong Tianfeng was talking nonsense when she asked its master to separate from Di Beichen. Now, it felt that this woman was a complete pervert. How could he still be so cold-blooded when such a thing happened to her? The other party must be blind to fall in love with her. I think so too. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded quietly. From her appearance, I can tell that she must still be alone at such an old age. This Gong Tianfeng is indeed ruthless, but she is also a character. Wu Wenfeng shook his head and sighed. In fact, Gong Tianfeng's talent in the light attribute isn't very outstanding, but she fought her way out of the encirclement and became the vice president of Rome City. This isn't easy. Now, she's asking you to separate from Di Beichen, or else you won't be allowed to join the Holy Light Assembly. I'm afraid that even if the sect leader goes to discuss with her, he won't get a good result. I understand. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. This person is very inflexible. He won't be moved by force or persuasion. Basically, it's useless no matter what you say. That's right. In the Holy Light Assembly of Rome and City, the person that everyone wants to avoid offending the most is her. Because once you provoke her, it will be really troublesome. Chapter 4362. Since you've already made up your mind, I won't persuade you anymore. You have your own persistence. Wu Wenfeng also nodded. He knew that there was no point in continuing this matter. Bailey Hongzhuang's bottom line was here. Unless the Holy Assembly's request changed, all of this was unshakable. As this matter spread, many people were quite dissatisfied with Gong Tianfeng's request. Many people even went to ask, feeling that such a request was too unreasonable. Vice President, Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude hasn't changed, but our sect master wants to visit you. Xiao Rojin looked at Gong Tianfeng in front of her. She didn't expect things to get to this point. Most importantly, she didn't expect that the sect master would come to see Gong Tianfeng for Bailey Hongzhuang. It was obvious how much importance the sect master attached to Bailey Hongzhuang. Your sect master? Gong Tianfeng's expression remained serious. Even if he comes, there's no room for negotiation. This Bailey Hongzhuang, I know she's narrow-minded. In such a short time, she has already spread the news as if I'm in the wrong. A dog biting Lu Dongbin. She doesn't know how to appreciate kindness. I'm doing this for her own good. It's fine if she doesn't appreciate it, but she actually spread rumors everywhere. How hateful. In the past 2 days, no matter where she went, she could feel that people were talking about her. This feeling undoubtedly made her feel very unhappy. Seeing Gong Tianfeng's determined look, Xiao Rojin felt a little more at ease. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang didn't join the Holy Assembly, her wings would be broken, and her status in the Raging Flames sect would never be comparable to hers. Junior sister Bailey is indeed in the wrong, but her talent is indeed very outstanding. If she doesn't join the Holy Assembly, it's indeed a pity. What's there to pity? Gong Tianfeng looked disdainful. There are many talented cultivators in this world, but not all of them can succeed in the end. Everything depends on one's own efforts and performance. Just like me, my talent isn't outstanding, but didn't I surpass many cultivators who were more talented than me? Rojin, I know you're kind-hearted and want to help Bailey Hongzhuang, but there's no need to talk about this anymore. Seeing this, Xiao Rojin's expression was filled with helplessness. Vice President, since you've decided, I won't say anything more. Don't get angry because of this matter. After all, you're mine. Hearing this, Gong Tianfeng smiled and nodded. I understand. Cultivate well. I have high hopes for you. In the future, you will definitely stand out. Thank you, Vice President. After Bailey Hongzhuang returned to the house, she and Di Bei Chun began to retreat. Now, they had given up on the cultivation of the light attribute. Anyway, they could still cultivate the dark attribute. In addition, Di Bei Chun had an inheritance. If they cultivated from this aspect, they may have better results. After adding elemental talent, the control of elemental energy will be more biased. The characteristic of dark energy is that it's silent, but it can kill in one strike. Di Beichen slowly told Bailey Hongzhuang what he knew. Before cultivating, Bailey Hongzhuang had to have a more comprehensive understanding of dark energy. Chapter 4363. After understanding its characteristics, Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood the power of elemental power. Previously, the cultivation of essence energy was purely destructive. However, the power of elemental power allowed many more possibilities for combat. Ingenious use of elemental power's characteristics could very likely result in unexpected results. The essence energy in our bodies has no elemental power now, so we have to take advantage of this opportunity to transform it into dark power, Di Beichun explained seriously. However, this process requires a lot of spirit stones. It just so happens that we extorted a sum of money from the Di family previously. We can use it now. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. The Di family can be considered to have kept their word and returned the remaining 50,000 spirit stones. As she said that, Bailey Hongzhuang took out the spirit stones from her heaven-earth bag. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were about to start using the spirit stones, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly frowned. Wait, is there a problem? Di Beichun's eyes narrowed. There was only one possibility for Bailey Hongzhuang to stop at this time. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the spirit stones in her hands. I can smell a faint scent on these spirit stones. Although it is almost indiscernible, I am still certain that it exists. Spirit stones have always had no scent. If there is a scent on them, it means that they have tampered with them. Di Beichun put down the spirit stones in his hands. He knew how sensitive Bailey Hongzhuang's sense of smell was. She had always been able to detect drugs immediately. It seems like the Di family is indeed dishonest. They actually tampered with these spirit stones. A cold glint appeared in her pitch-black phoenix eyes. She had long had a bad impression of the Di family, but she had never thought that they would actually think of tampering with them here. I think they had already thought of this when they decided to hand over the spirit stones, so they came prepared. If you were not proficient in medical skills, I'm afraid that an ordinary person would have fallen into their trap. They thought that we would not be able to use these spirit stones this way. Unfortunately, the target is me. Give me some time, and I'll be able to solve this problem. Di Beichun nodded slightly. Wife, your medical skills have always been praised. At the same time, DeVows and the others were also waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to have a problem. However, after waiting for a long time, there was no news. Logically speaking, we've already given the spirit stones to Bailey Hongzhuang for such a long time. It should have taken effect long ago. DeVows frowned. Ever since he heard from Di Sudong that he had tampered with the spirit stones, he had been waiting for news. However, he didn't expect that after waiting here for so long, there was still no news. It really made him feel helpless. That shouldn't be the case. Di Sudong was also puzzled. Could it be that they haven't used our spirit stones for so long? It can't be. DeVows was a little doubtful. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to resist taking out so many spirit stones to have a look. If they haven't taken them out, then Bailey Hongzhuang and the others are too patient. Let's wait a little longer. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang has refused to join the Holy Light Assembly, This is extremely good news for us. A smile appeared on Di Sudong's face once again. Originally, when they had found out that Bailey Hongzhuang's light attribute talent was so outstanding, they had been worried for a while. Chapter 43-64. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang found out that there was a problem with the Spirit Stone, she began to deal with the poison on the Spirit Stone. The poisons in the upper realm were all strange. Many of them had changed in the past 1,000 years, but they were still the same. Bailey Hongzhuang was still able to deal with them easily. Beichun, I've already understood the poison, but I still need to go out and buy some herbs to make the antidote. Why don't you come with me? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and looked at Di Beichun. Xiao Rojin told me the place where contract beasts can awaken their innate talents. Why don't we take Baishur to test its innate talent today? Di Beichun nodded and looked at her lovingly. Okay. Baishur was also excited when he found out that Bailey Hongzhuang was going to take him to awaken his innate talent. That's great, Master. Bailey Hongzhuang rubbed Baishur's head. He had become more and more muscular. Just looking at his appearance was enough to make many people gasp in amazement. He was no longer the cute little guy from before, but a majestic beast king. A beast king that both humans and contract beasts would fear at first glance. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun walked out of the House of Raging Flames together. They were now the most eye-catching couple in the House of Raging Flames. However, after everyone knew that the two of them had such a deep relationship, many people gave them their heartfelt blessings. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the place where contract beasts' innate talents were tested. Everything here was very simple. One only needed to pay a sufficient fee to awaken their contract beasts. However, after understanding the price, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but sigh. The price was really unusually high. Even though she had already expected that the price would not be cheap, this price was really amazing. Although the price here is a little expensive, everything here is very secretive. Moreover, the contract beast's attributes will not be leaked. In this aspect, they do a good job. Bailey Hongzhuang stood in the secret room, looking around at the closed room, her pretty face showing a satisfied look. The upper realm is different from the lower realm. Here, the dark attribute is disliked by the people. In order to prevent the news of the dark attribute from spreading, the upper realm is well hidden. What's more, to be able to raise a contracted beast to the point of awakening, one must have a lot of financial and material resources. Such a person must have a lot of financial resources, so it's normal for the shop to want to make a profit. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. So, we can only be the spendthrifts. It can't be helped. Di Beichun chuckled. But my wife, you're already rich. You flatter me. When White Lion awakened his talent, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun immediately fell silent. They looked at White Lion with concern, wondering what kind of attribute White Lion would awaken. White Lion was fully focused on awakening his talent. Xiao He and Xiao Bai also looked at him curiously. Now that their talents had been awakened, only White Lion was left. I wonder what kind of attribute White Lion will awaken. Will it be the same as mine? Xiao He's eyes shone with interest. But I hope that White Lion won't be the same as mine. Otherwise, White Lion won't be able to cultivate properly. Originally, awakening the light attribute was something to be happy about. But now that Master refused to join the Holy Light Assembly, they did not have the cultivation method of the light attribute. Chapter 43-65. Xiao He, don't worry. Sooner or later, there will be a way to cultivate the power of light. Xiao Bai understood Xiao He's thoughts the best. They had been together for so many years and understood each other's personalities very well. They could understand each other's thoughts just by looking at their expressions. Xiao He nodded slightly. I also believe that there will be a way. However, although staying in the Raging Flame sect is more secure, opponents may appear at any time. The D family is still eyeing us covetously. If we can't increase our powers, we won't be able to help Master. Therefore, I hope that White Lion won't end up like me. Xiao Bai cannot help but sigh. Understand. The situation may not be as bad as you think. After coming to the upper realm, they had been like a small boat that could sink into the ocean at any time. The people here are not simple. Offending someone with a strong background could be a disaster for them. Not long after, a dazzling white light exploded from the crystal ball. When they saw this familiar light, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun could not help but look at each other. It seemed that the situation was just as they had thought. White Lion really did have the light attribute. I never thought that White Lion would have the same light attribute as me. Now that I think about it, it's really interesting. I wonder if this is a coincidence or if it was predestined. Bailey Hongzhuang's fair face was filled with astonishment. She could not help but be astonished. This was really too much of a coincidence. Xiaohei could not help but sigh when she saw this. White Lion really does have the light attribute. However, just as everyone was confirming this, a black light suddenly appeared quietly. The black light gradually became thicker and stronger in the crystal ball. In the end, it and the light energy each occupied half of the crystal ball. Neither was weaker than the other. When they saw this, Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichun, Xiaohei, and Xiaobai could not help but be stunned. They never thought that White Lion would have two attributes. The White Lion actually possesses the light and darkness attributes. After knowing this result, Bailey Hongzhuang was in disbelief. When this happened to her and Di Beichun, she already found it strange. She did not expect White Lion to be the same as them. Beast Kings are so different from other demonic beasts. It's not hard to understand why their attributes are so different. Di Beichun said slowly, but its attributes are the same as ours, which proves that it is fated to be with us. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. She immediately pulled Baisher into her arms. Baisher, we are indeed on the same side. White Lion was obviously very satisfied with its attributes. Originally, it was wondering if it would have other attributes, but now, it was undoubtedly most satisfied with this result. The kind of master would have the kind of contract beast. Only then would they be the most compatible. This is great. Other than Xiaohei, all of us are dark type. Di Beichun shook his head and sighed. This kind of situation would make people speechless in the upper realm. He did not expect that most of them were of the same attribute. Once they had cultivated their dark type powers, it was easy to imagine what would happen. Bailey Hongzhuang and the beasts looked at each other. They were also very helpless. Chapter 4366. You're right. This is pretty good too. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Di Beichun's current responsibility was to change the cultivator's perception of darkness. Now that they all possessed the darkness attribute, they would naturally be able to perform better in the darkness attribute. I'm actually the only one without the darkness attribute. How unfair. Xiaohei was depressed. She felt like she had suddenly been excluded. Bailey Hongzhuang hugged Xiaohei and pinched her chubby cheeks. Don't be depressed. We're all one. Although we don't have a way to cultivate the energy of light right now. Trust me, we'll definitely find a way. Although she had decided not to join the Radiant Sacred Assembly, it did not mean that she was not prepared to cultivate the energy of light. She believed that there were many ways to cultivate, and not just one. Although the Radiant Sacred Assembly could only spread the cultivation method, and no one else could do so without permission, there would always be unexpected situations. If there was really no other way, she could just snatch it from other cultivators with the light attribute. It was not like she had never done something like that before. Yeah, Xiaohei, we're all one. Xiaohei, you don't have to be depressed. You all have the light attribute, but I don't. I'm the same as you in this aspect, Xiaobai smiled. Xiaohei's mood immediately improved when she heard everyone's consolation. She immediately nodded with a smile. You're right. It's fine as long as everyone can develop well. On the way back, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were in a very good mood. They only returned to the Raging Flames sect after buying some herbs they needed. When the cultivators of the Raging Flames sect saw how happy Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were, their eyes flickered with confusion. They could not help but feel pity and worry for Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiaohei. Without a cultivation method, Bailey Hongzhuang had no future. It went without saying for Di Beichen. His full attribute was indeed very enviable, but he was of the darkness attribute. From the moment that was confirmed, it meant that he no longer had any hope or future here. This was evident from the fact that there were fewer and fewer women who admired him. Everyone thought that they should be in despair right now, but the two of them just happened to be indifferent and even happy. They did not understand why. The two of them really aren't worried at all. They're actually in the mood to go out and play at a time like this. Perhaps they've given up. There's no hope anyway. There's no hope. Don't look at how happy they are. Maybe they're just faking it. Who knows how much pain they're suffering in their hearts. At this moment, Wang Yanhan couldn't help but frown as he walked over. What does it have to do with you? Stop worrying over nothing. Disperse, disperse. If you have the time to talk about others, focus on cultivating, said Yi Haomiao. Only when everyone dispersed did Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao walk over to Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiaohe. They comforted them with concern. Are you all right? These people just like to gossip. Don't worry about them. Chapter 43-67. Looking at how calm Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were, Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao couldn't help but sigh at how strong their mental fortitude was. If ordinary people were in their shoes, they would definitely look worried and gloomy. However, the two of them acted as if nothing had happened, as if nothing had affected them at all. It really wasn't easy. However, the two of them weren't stupid. They already understood the current situation. Junior sister, junior brother D, what do you plan to do in the future? Wang Yanhan's eyes were filled with worry. Now, even he couldn't help but feel distressed. After rejecting the cultivation method of the Holy Light Assembly and not having the cultivation method of the dark energy, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were no different from having their wings broken. It might be fine for a short period of time, but after a long time, they would really be treading on thin ice in the upper realm. Don't worry about us. We'll find a way. Di Beichen's handsome face was as calm as water. We'll find the cultivation method of the dark energy. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao weren't optimistic at all. The inheritance of the dark energy disappeared long ago when the dark forces were annihilated. After so many years, many dark attribute cultivators have tried to find it, but to no avail. It's really too difficult for you to find the inheritance of the dark energy on your own. Wang Yanhan sighed. In his opinion, the inheritance of the dark energy might have completely disappeared from the entire world long ago. Wang Yanhan is right. If it could be found, it would have been found long ago. Do you think those dark attribute cultivators don't want to hold their heads high? It's just that they can't find a way, so they can only live in silence. Yi Haomiao couldn't help but say. Yi Haomiao also couldn't help but speak. He didn't want to attack Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. He just wanted them to not be too naive. If they pinned their hopes on such an illusory thing, they would definitely be disappointed in the future. Senior brothers, I know that everything you've said is for our own good, but there's no better way now, is there? Bailey Hongzhuang gazed at Wang Yanhan and Beichen. Both she and Beichen felt very fortunate to have two friends who cared about them from the bottom of their hearts in the upper realm. With Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao were at a loss for words. Everything was as Bailey Hongzhuang had said. They didn't have any better ideas. Little junior sister, why don't you try to think of another way to join the Holy Light Assembly? Wang Yanhan still felt that it was a pity for Bailey Hongzhuang to give up like this. If she could join the Holy Assembly, then their situation would be much better than now. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. There's no need to try. The vice president is very insistent, and I don't intend to bother with her. Although a great man knows when to yield and when to stand tall, I'm a little girl. I don't intend to lower my head to her. Upon seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's determined look, Wang Yanhan sighed faintly and said, If there's anything we can help with, you must tell us. Thank you, senior brother. We will. All right, the D family seems to still be in Romance City. However, They have been much more well-behaved recently and haven't taken the initiative to cause trouble, Yi Haomiao said slowly. Didn't you run into them when you went out today? Chapter 4368. They suffered a loss at our hands last time, so I don't think they'll dare to find trouble with us anytime soon, Di Beichun said slowly. However, all of you should stay in the Fiery Flames sect for the time being. Don't go out. They might find trouble with us at any time. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao nodded at Di Beichun's words. Bailey Hongzhuang was an inscription master. Not only did she have the Fiery Flame sect support, but Cheng Zonghao also thought highly of her. Under such circumstances, the Di family would not dare to act rashly. However, compared to them, it was a different story. They did not have a powerful backer like Bailey Hongzhuang, so it would be much easier for the Di family to attack them. Therefore, under the current circumstances, it was better for them to stay in the Fiery Flame sect for the time being. We understand, so we'll stay here for the time being. Wang Yanhan nodded. However, there will be an opportunity to go out and train in a few days. We'll all go out. What opportunity? Bailey Hongzhuang looked up, her bright eyes flickering with astonishment. She had not heard of this before. We just heard about it. The exact time has not been set, but we might all go together. However, it won't be just the Fiery Flame sect's cultivators. Cultivators from other sects will also go, so there might be a lot of competition. Competition for what? Di Beichun raised his long eyebrows. What treasures will there be in the training area? Actually, we're going there to explore, Yi Haomiao explained. An abyss has appeared in the mountain range north of Rome and city. The situation is not clear yet. Someone has already gone to explore it, but there are no definite results. The situation in the abyss this time is rather complicated, so we don't know whether it's good or bad. Usually, when such a situation occurs, all the sects will send cultivators to investigate. The more people there are, the more power there is. It's easier to investigate. Moreover, this is a competition between cultivators from different sections. Whoever can find out the final result will bring glory to the sect. If you perform well, you'll be rewarded when you return to the sect, even if there are no treasures there. I've already experienced this in the Inferno School. Wang Yanhan added, every once in a while, something similar will happen. Actually, it's also a competition between the various sections. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun immediately understood. There would always be some competitions between the sects to promote the progress of the cultivators. At the same time, they would be able to better understand the situation of their opponents. Whether it was in the lower realm or the upper realm, the situation was the same. We understand. Cultivate well during this period of time and strive to perform well when the time comes. All right. Looking at the backs of Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Haomiao, Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao were also filled with emotions. The so-called cultivate well was actually just to comfort themselves. Fortunately, they wouldn't be left too far behind in the short term. Bailey Hongzhuang's movements were very fast. In a short period of time, she had already detoxified the spirit stone. Now that the spirit stones were no longer poisonous, they could be used without worry. Immediately after, they began to cultivate the power of darkness. Ever since their talents were awakened, almost all the cultivators had joined guilds of their respective attributes and began to cultivate their elemental powers. Naturally, they couldn't be left behind by others. Chapter 4369. As Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Zichen transformed the primary energy in their bodies into dark energy, they felt that their primary energy was different from before. Darkness attribute practitioners are very good at hiding. Once their manipulation of dark energy is good enough, they can completely hide in the darkness, in the shadows, making it difficult for others to find them. Summoning skeleton armies is also our ability. As long as there are skeletons, we can use dark energy to summon them as our helpers. However, if we're not strong enough, we can only summon a small number of skeletons. If we're strong enough, we can summon a large number of skeletons. As Di Beichun described the characteristics of dark energy, Bailey Hongzhuang and the two beasties listened attentively. Today, Di Beichun was one of the few people in the world who had mastered the dark inheritance. If they followed what he said, they would be able to avoid detours. While they were cultivating dark energy, Xiaohe didn't give up on cultivation. Instead, it began to try to cultivate light energy. It felt that it might be able to find some methods by fumbling around on its own. Following the method Bailey Hongzhuang and the others used to transform their primary energy into dark energy, Xiaohe used a similar method to begin to transform light energy. Although there were slight differences between the two, they both believed that no matter how many changes there would always be some similarities between the various attributes. After starting to cultivate the power of darkness, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others entered the ocean world. Time passes slower there, and they have more time to cultivate than everyone else. Moreover, with opponents, their progress would be faster. After a period of seclusion, when Bailey Hongzhuang came out, she found that someone was looking for her. "Little junior sister, you're finally out." Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang finally open the door, Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. "Senior brother, are you looking for me?" Bailey Hongzhuang looked surprised. "Is the training about to start?" "That's not it." Wang Yanhan shook his head. "Master Cheng is looking for you." "Cheng Zonghao?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang actually called Cheng Zonghao by his name, Wang Yanhan and Wang Yanhan were slightly stunned. However, when they thought of Bailey Hongzhuang's achievements and status in the field of inscription, they understood a little. Usually, even Wu Wenfeng had to respectfully address Cheng Zonghao as Master Cheng when he saw him. "That's right. Master Cheng sent someone to invite you a few days ago, but you were in seclusion, so he didn't disturb you. He said that he would invite you over for a chat after you came out of seclusion. He didn't expect that you wouldn't come out of seclusion for several days." Wang Yanhan said slowly. They lived next door to Bailey Hongzhuang. As long as there was any movement, they would be the first to notice it. After hearing some noises, they opened the door to take a look. Sure enough, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun had already come out. "I see." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Since the last time she saw Cheng Zonghao, she knew that Cheng Zonghao would definitely find a chance to talk to her. "Little junior sister, do you want to go and take a look?" Wang Yanhan couldn't help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment and replied, "I'll go and meet him." Previously, when Cheng Zonghao came to invite her, she had already rejected him once. Last time outside the Raging Flames sect, Cheng Zonghao could be considered to have helped her. Chapter 4370. Wang Yanhan nodded. Judging from the situation last time, Master Cheng doesn't have any ill intentions towards you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and declined to comment. She couldn't make a conclusion too early on this matter. Needless to say, Cheng Zonghao came to find her time and time again to get something from her. If there were no benefits, with Cheng Zonghao's status, he wouldn't put in so much effort. As for what he wanted, she wasn't sure at the moment. The last time they met, Cheng Zonghao did have a good attitude. However, if she rejected him, the situation would be uncertain. "Wife, are you sure you want to go?" After Wang Yanhan and Bailey Hongzhuang left, Di Beichun spoke slowly. He also thought of the problem. "Even if I don't go now, Cheng Zonghao will find a way to see me. Since I have to face him sooner or later, I might as well go earlier." "I'll go with you," Di Beichun said. "Okay." Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun walked out of the Raging Flames sect. They asked a random person and found out where Cheng Zonghao lived. As the only inscription master in the city, Cheng Zonghao was undoubtedly very famous. His mansion was also very luxurious. After they reported their names, the servant immediately brought Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang into the mansion. Obviously, someone had already informed them beforehand. "Please wait here for a moment. I'll go and invite Master Cheng." The servant poured tea for Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang and said respectfully, "Okay." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Cheng Zonghao's servant was indeed very polite to them. However, she didn't know why Chung Zonghao was looking for her. Logically speaking, Chung Zonghao was also an inscription master. He shouldn't have any requests for her. Could it be that he just wanted to rope her in? Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking, Chung Zonghao's figure appeared in their line of sight. Miss Bailey, Master D, I'm sorry for not going out to meet you. Chung Zonghao walked in with a face full of smiles. His attitude was polite and courteous. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun cupped their hands. Master Chung is too polite. With your status, you must be very busy. Actually, I'm also an idle person. Chung Zonghao smiled. Please have a seat. The taste of the tea in my mansion is quite good. It is indeed a good tea. Master Chung, why? Is there anything that? Bailey Hongzhuang's face was calm as she calmly asked. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Chung Zonghao chuckled. Miss Bailey is really a straightforward person. Since you're so straightforward, I won't hide it. Actually, with Miss Bailey's ability, you can establish your own sect. If we join forces, the inscriptions in the entire realm and city will belong to the two of us. Do you want to stay in the Raging Flames sect? To be honest, inscriptions are just my side job. What I value more is cultivation. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Thank you for your appreciation, Master Chung. Actually, I don't have many inscriptions now. I only gave a small amount to the Raging Flames sect. Chapter 4371. Chung Zonghao, who had been puzzled by Bailey Hongzhuang, immediately understood after hearing her words. It turned out that Bailey Hongzhuang valued cultivation the most instead of inscriptions. This thought had undoubtedly far exceeded his expectations. Generally speaking, between an inscription master and a cultivator, anyone would choose the first one because it would be much easier to walk on this road. He didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would actually prefer the latter. In this way, it was easy to understand Bailey Hongzhuang's choice. So Miss Bailey values cultivation the most. Chung Zonghao nodded. However, even if you leave the Blazing Flames sect, you can still cultivate. Actually, with your current situation, although the Blazing Flames sect can help you solve some problems, they can't help you too much. From what I know, you've run into trouble in the Holy Assembly, but the Blazing Flames sect can help you solve it, right? That's right, Bailey Hongzhuang replied. Actually, this isn't the Blazing Flames sect's problem. It's a conflict between me and the vice president of the Holy Assembly. I can't agree to her request, so it's useless no matter who comes forward to solve this problem. However, Chung Zonghao waved his hand. No, I can help you solve this problem. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were stunned when they heard this. Their eyes flashed with astonishment. You can solve it? That's right. Chung Zonghao smiled confidently. The president of the Holy Assembly went out of town a few days ago and will be back in a few days. I have a good relationship with him, so as long as I come forward, I guarantee that I can solve this problem for you. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other. If someone else had said this, they would not have cared at all. They would have thought that the person was just painting a pie in the sky. However, with Chung Zonghao's identity and position, it was indeed possible for him to do this. Moreover, there was no need for him to exaggerate his abilities. If that was the case, it would be a good thing for them. Master Chung, we're all sensible people. Since that's the case, why don't we speak frankly? What do you want? Bailey Hongzhuang's black phoenix eyes flashed with a sharp light. She was very clear that Chung Zonghao wouldn't help her so much for no reason. As early as when Chung Zonghao came to find her time and time again, she understood that the other party must want to get something from her. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Chung Zonghao could not help but chuckle. Can't I do it for the sake of our friendship? Bailey Hongzhuang also laughed out loud. Master Chung, I'm not a greenhorn. I've long given up on this kind of pie falling from the sky. The world had always been fair. If you wanted to get something, you would have to pay a price. You're a busy person. I believe that you won't waste your time on me for this so-called friendship. Why don't you just tell me what you want? This way, We can see if we can make an exchange of conditions. Bailey Hongzhuang's delicate jade-like face was filled with a bright smile. Her expression was calm, and her eyes were clear. It was just a business discussion. It was useless to say anything more. What mattered was whether their conditions were suitable. Chapter 4372. Miss Bailey, putting all of this aside, I really admire you. Chung Zhonghao's gaze was sincere. Nowadays, there were not many young people whom he admired. However, he had admired Bailey Hongzhuang since the first time he had met her. This cultivator from the lower realm obviously did not have any background, but she had been able to take advantage of it. Logically speaking, it would have been very easy for the D family to deal with two cultivators from the lower realm. However, after meeting Bailey Hongzhuang, everything had become impossible. This was not the D family's problem, but Bailey Hongzhuang was smart enough. Just like how she was talking to him now, Bailey Hongzhuang was also very smart. She understood the rules of this world too well. Furthermore, he could not ignore Di Beichun, who was beside Bailey Hongzhuang. Although Di Beichun had not spoken much ever since he had arrived, his deep and wise gaze made him understand that he had also seen through everything. He had just not said anything. Di Beichun had also been paying attention to their surroundings. If there was any unhappiness between them, he was already prepared to leave with Bailey Hongzhuang immediately. This young man was very protective of Bailey Hongzhuang. Thank you, Master Chung. I feel very honored to be admired by you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Master Chung, I am a very simple person. You can tell me what you want directly. Since you are so straightforward, I will not say any more nonsense. Chung Zhonghao's expression became serious. I want to know the person behind you. As soon as Chung Zhonghao finished speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other without batting an eyelid. They were secretly criticizing him in their hearts, but they did not reveal any clues on the surface. They had come to the upper realm alone and without any help. It was no longer a secret that they did not have any background. Everyone was very clear about this situation. What exactly had made Chung Zhonghao mistakenly think that they actually had a background? Master Chung, what do you mean? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm as she looked at Chung Zhonghao in confusion. It was obvious that she did not understand what he meant. In fact, she really did not understand. However, in Chung Zhonghao's eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang was deliberately pretending. In his heart, he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's disguise was not bad. I have seen your inscriptions. You should know about this, right? Chung Zhonghao smiled faintly. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I know. When I first saw your inscriptions, I realized that your inscriptions had reached a perfect level. This was something that I had been trying to achieve all these years. Unfortunately, after spending so much time, I was still unable to do so. Thus, when I discovered that you were able to do so, I was pleasantly surprised. Chung Zhonghao said while observing Bailey Hongzhuang's expression. Sure enough, when he said this, he realized that Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed a little. Bailey Hongzhuang had never understood why Chung Zhonghao, who was also an inscription master, would pursue her so closely. Now, she finally understood. It turned out that the inscriptions that Chung Zhonghao had not yet reached the level of skill, so he had been so persistent. This was where the problem lay. Chapter 4373. Although Bailey Hongzhuang found it strange that Chung Zhonghao would give her a master out of nowhere, she thought about it carefully and understood his thoughts. With her current age, it was already surprising that her inscription technique could reach such a level. Moreover, she could do things that Chung Zhonghao couldn't, so it was normal for him to think so. Thinking about it, if it was anyone else, they would have the same opinion. In fact, she did have a master, and this master was abnormally strong, and that was the Chaos Ring. Thinking about this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly, then nodded and said, Master Chung, you're right, I do have a master. Di Beichun also nodded quietly. At this time, bringing up a groundless master wasn't a bad thing for Bailey Hongzhuang. On the contrary, it was a good thing. Only Chung Zonghao thought that they had a strong enough backing, so he wouldn't dare to act against them. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang admitted this point, Chung Zonghao's face revealed a joyful smile. It seemed that his guess was wrong. I have some questions to ask your master. I wonder if you can introduce me to him? Chung Zonghao's eyes revealed a trace of anticipation. Ever since he knew of Bailey Hongzhuang's ability in inscription technique, he had wanted to pay a visit to Bailey Hongzhuang's master. Before this, he also thought of directly capturing Bailey Hongzhuang and learning the inscription technique from her. However, after thinking about it, he gave up on this idea, because just from this inscription technique, he could tell that her master's background wasn't simple. If he offended such a big figure, it wouldn't be beneficial to him. If the other party was angry and came to find trouble with him, he might not be able to withstand his own anger. In this way, he might as well build a good relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang, and through Bailey Hongzhuang's recommendation, he might be able to get a better result. Bailey Hongzhuang pretended to be deep in thought for a moment, then said, "My master has always been very good to me. Master Chung, you've helped me before, so I believe that my master should be willing to meet you. However, my master has something to do and isn't here recently." Hearing this, Chung Zonghao was slightly disappointed. He really couldn't wait to meet that master. If my master was here, I wouldn't be restrained by the D family. Actually, I understand that he left for a period of time to give me space to grow. Otherwise, if I was always under his protection, it would be difficult for me to grow by myself. Master Chung, don't you think so? Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation, Chung Zonghao finally understood. You're right. Young people should have the opportunity to rely on themselves. Your master is for your own good. He really cares of you. Actually, he's his D's, he's. If it wasn't for him, it would be hard for me to imagine my current state. Saying this, Bailey Hongzhuang said, Master Chung, if my master comes back, I'll definitely recommend you to him, but I'm afraid you'll have to wait for a while. Chung Zonghao waved his hand. No problem, I can wait. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. All right, I'll inform you when my master comes back. Chapter 4374. Master Chung, you're too polite. You've helped me before. What I'm doing is just a small matter. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. For a moment, Chung Zonghao felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was more and more pleasing to the eye. Originally, he was worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would hide it from him and not be willing to tell him. He didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be such a straightforward person. However, when he recalled how Bailey Hongzhuang treated her two friends, he understood. If my information is correct, the president of the Radiant Sacred Assembly will be back tomorrow. When he's back, I'll introduce you to him. Don't worry, Gong Tianfeng is only the vice president. The president has the most authority. In fact, Gong Tianfeng's actions have already made many people unhappy. It has affected the Radiant Sacred Assembly to a certain extent. Moreover, your attribute talent is so outstanding. The president has no reason to reject you. Chung Zonghao's eyes flashed with a sharp light. His aura was released. He was very confident about this. Looking at Chung Zonghao's confident look, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and cupped her hands. Thank you, Master Chung. I really don't see eye to eye with this vice president. I thought that it would be impossible for me to join the Radiant Sacred Assembly. If Master Chung has a way, I'll be very grateful. Although she was unhappy with Gong Tianfeng, she wouldn't joke about her future. As long as they could obtain the cultivation method of the light attribute, it would be a good thing for them. Moreover, she, Di Beichun, Baishur, and Xiao He all had the light attribute. If they could cultivate the light attribute, their battle strength would definitely increase greatly. Don't worry. Wait for my news. Goodbye. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun stood up and left Chung Zonghao's residence. After achieving his goal, Chung Zonghao didn't invite Bailey Hongzhuang to join him. In fact, just like what Bailey Hongzhuang said, the inscriptions in the entire Rome and city belonged to him, which was undoubtedly the best. Bailey Hongzhuang was only in charge of the Raging Flames school's inscriptions, which wouldn't affect him much. After leaving Cheng Zhonghao's mansion, Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichun looked at each other and smiled. I thought that we would face a dragon's pool and a tiger's den this time. I didn't expect it to be so easy. On the contrary, we got a big gift. You can rest assured now. Deep Beichun chuckled. He knew that although Bailey Hongzhuang had rejected the Holy Light Assembly, she still cared about this matter. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't want her future to be affected by a woman she hated. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Isn't that good? Since Cheng Zhonghao is so confident, I think this matter will most likely succeed. It will definitely succeed, Di Beichun said with certainty. However, you have to go back and face that disgusting woman again. Are you okay with that? No problem. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. She said she wouldn't let me in, but I went in anyway. The person who should be the most unhappy should be her, not me. If I can stimulate her and make her understand that the Holy Light Assembly doesn't belong to her alone, why wouldn't I do it? Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. If she could make her opponent unhappy, she would be happy. Good move. Di Beichun nodded. That vice president will have a headache after meeting my wife. I'll take it as a compliment. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.